I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Would everybody have a seat? Thank you. I have the guidelines to read before we hear the cases today, so everybody will bear with me, and then our attorney has a statement to make. This is a public hearing, and we are the Zoning Board of Adjustments for Putnam County, Florida. We operate under the authority of Articles 11 and 12 of the Land Development Code as amended. The primary responsibility of the board is to hear and decide appeals challenging final determinations made by the Planning and Development Services Department under the Land Development Code, and to hear and act upon requests for variances, special use permits, non-conforming use determinations, and preliminary development plans under the Land Development Code. A variance is a relaxation of the requirements of the zoning code in a particular case where, because of unusual circumstances, a literal enforcement of our zoning code would result in undue and unnecessary hardship. The zoning code permits us to authorize variances only for height, size of structure, size of yards, and open spaces. If we grant a variance, we may impose reasonable conditions on the use of the property, which must be satisfied if the variance is to remain valid. The standards we use in deciding whether or not to grant a variance are listed in Section 45-833 of the Land Development Code. A special use permit is special permission to use property in a fashion which the zoning classification of the property does not automatically permit. If we grant a special use permit, we may impose reasonable conditions on the use of the property which must be satisfied if the special use permit is to remain valid. Unlike a change in the zoning classification, as a general rule, a special use permit applies only to the specific use requested in the application for a special use permit. The standards we use in deciding whether or not to grant a special use permit are listed in Section 45-1083 of the Land Development Code. Procedurally, we will call each case by name and number, and a member of the staff will then briefly explain to us the nature of each request. We will then take any comments from the applicant or their representative, followed by any public comments concerning the request. Please direct all comments and statements to the board and not to other people in the audience. Before speaking, we will ask each person to be recognized, come forward to the lectern, and identify his or herself by name and address. After all persons wishing to speak have been heard, we will entertain a motion from the board. This motion will be voted on by board members and become our final order. Any decision made by this board can be appealed to the circuit court. However, any appeal must be filed within 30 days after the Board of Adjustment has rendered the final order which is being appealed. Are there any questions? Before the first case is heard, all of those wishing to speak need to be sworn in. And before the notary comes, please, if you haven't decided whether you're going to speak or not, go ahead and be sworn in. That way we won't have to stop in the middle of the meeting to swear someone in. So if you think you might want to speak today, please raise your hand when the notary asks you to. So will the notary please come forward and administer the oath? Would you please silence your phone? Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that you will tell the truth in your testimony and so please answer I do? I do. Give this sworn. Okay, before we proceed, Mr. Perry, I think you have something to read for the...
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to take a few minutes to explain, as best I can, the procedure the Zoning Board of Adjustment will employ during this hearing. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with the applicable Putnam County ordinances and Florida statutes. First of all, please recognize that this is a quasi-judicial administrative hearing. In this instance, that means that the formal rules of evidence and procedure are relaxed. The Zoning Board of Adjustment can, and probably will, hear and receive evidence that would not be allowed in a court of law. The Zoning Board of Adjustment does, however, follow specific procedures set forth in Chapter 45, Article 11, Section 45 through 1022 of the Putnam County Code of Ordinances. These procedures are designed to make the hearing progress in an orderly manner and to protect everyone's due process rights. Allow me to briefly describe this process. The chairperson, Ms. Osborne, has authority during and control over this meeting. Each petition will be introduced by the chair. Representatives of the Planning and Development Services Department will then make a presentation and will respond to questions posed by the members of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. The applicant will then make a presentation if he or she chooses and will respond to questions posed by members of the Zoning Board. I have just a little bit more. The standard of proof in this matter is competent and substantial evidence. A definition of this standard is evidence that is sufficiently relevant and material that a reasonable mind would accept it as adequate to support the conclusion reached. As set forth by the Putnam County Municipal Code, interested parties will be permitted to address the Zoning Board. Interested parties is defined as persons prepared to submit evidence to the board and be willing to submit to cross-examination. The Zoning Board will then hear from citizens and/or their representatives in support of the petition and answer questions, if any, posed by members of the Zoning Board. The Zoning Board will then hear from citizens and/or their representatives who are against the petition and answer questions, if any, posed by members of the Commission. Comments by citizens, either for or against the petition, are called citizen comment. While it is customary that each citizen be given 3 minutes to speak, the chairperson has the authority to allow a citizen to speak longer. I believe you will probably find that 3 minutes will suffice. The chair will then allow the petitioner an opportunity to rebut any evidence offered against the petition. The meeting will then be closed to public comment, and it will return to the chair and the board for a decision. May I ask that everyone please be civil with each other, and that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, before we get started, since there's a large group of people, I'm assuming here for the borrow pit, if you would raise your hand so I can sort of make a determination as to how many people. Okay, well, since you're such a large group, we are going to change the agenda, and we're going to hear the first case. You guys are going to be last because you're going to take up, I'm sure, a considerable amount of time. So the first case this afternoon will be, come on, Amanda, the variance 24-00001. So before we hear from the staff, I have to ask if any of the board members had an ex parte communication or a conflict of interest in this case. So with roll call.
Roy Weaver?
No.
Ron West?
No.
Mary Ratliff?
No.
Linda Osborne?
No.
William Gagey?
No.
Okay, if staff is ready, please identify yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Gazelle, Planner 2. First case hearing is variance 24-000001. The applicant is Florida Tiny Homes, LLC. Location is 145 Little Orange Lake Drive in Hawthorne. Parcel size is 0.6 acres. The zoning district is agriculture. The future land use is agriculture. The request is a variance from Sections 45-632B of the Land Development Code to allow for a reduction of road frontage requirements from 120 feet to 100 feet to build a single-family residence. The subject parcel was created originally in 1971 as part of the Four Lakes Unrecorded Subdivision. The lot size has not been changed since its creation. The applicant purchased the parcel in 2022. It was already zoned and the current size, despite the nonconformity of the zoning district. This is prior to the creation of the current comprehensive plan policies established on December 19, 1991, and the Land Development Code, which established minimum lot size and road frontage requirements. The applicant's property is of insufficient size and road frontage for the agriculture zoning district. However, it is a lot of record. The property is allowed to bypass the density requirements and the minimum size requirements needed for the installation of a single-family resident, so long as they can meet the setback and frontage requirements as outlined in LDC section 45-798. Our aerial map. Zoning. Future land use. Staff finds that the requested variance meets the criteria required for issuance of a variance in LDC section 45-833. Staff recommends approval of the requested variance to allow for the reduction of road frontage requirements from 120 feet to 100 feet in the agriculture zoning district. Questions?
Do we have any questions for staff? None? Okay, thank you. Before we proceed, let's do a site visit roll call, please.
Roy Weaver,
Yes.
Ron West,
Yes.
Mary Ratliff,
Yes.
Linda Osborne,
Yes.
Lloyd McGahee.
Yes.
Okay, the applicant is Florida Tiny Farms LLC. Do we have a representative today? Okay, no representative. I haven't gotten any request for speaking for either for or against. So is anyone wishing to come forward to speak in favor of this application? Anyone wishing to come forward and speak in opposition? Okay, no one's coming forward, so I guess we take it on the merit that we have in front of us. So at this time, we will close the comments and to the public and open it up for board discussion and motion.
Make a motion. I move we approve variance 24-000001 as it meets the criteria for variance as required by section 45-833 of the Putnam County Land Development Code, and authorize the chair to sign the final order.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve variance 24-000001. Is there any further comment? If none, all of those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed, 0. So motion carries 5-0. So staff, I guess you will have to notify the applicant of the results. Okay, before we proceed, we will do the next one will be variance 24-000002. We will do an ex parte communication and conflict of interest call.
Roy Weaver,
No.
Ron West,
No.
Mary Ratliff,
No.
Linda Osborne,
No.
Lloyd McGahee.
No.
Okay, staff?
Thank you very much. Again, Jennifer Gazella, Planner 2. Variance 24-000002. Applicants are Larry and Tammy Lester. Location is 177 Morris Lake Drive in Hawthorne. Parcel size is 2.25 acres. Zoning district is agriculture. Future land use is agriculture. This request is for a variance to allow for one accessory structure, 480 square feet with the proper permits in agriculture zoning district on 2.25 acre parcel. The applicant's primary residence is addressed at 172 Morris Lake Drive in Hawthorne, situated southwest of the subject parcel. LDC section 45-104B stipulates in order to place an accessory structure on a lot or parcel separated by a public or private street from the principal use or structure, the property owner must obtain a variance from the Zoning Board of Adjustment following the requirements provided in Division 4 of this code. In most cases, the ZBOA has the ability to grant a variance for an accessory structures to be developed across the street from primary residences. However, the location of the primary residence parcel and the subject parcel are not directly across from one another. Rather than approaching the ZBOA to consider an accessory use across the street from the primary use, Staff and the applicant agreed that the more appropriate request was to seek relief from the regulations of LDC Section 45-106D2, which allows the development of accessory structures on standalone ag-zoned parcels subject to property size and structure size. We have our aerial, also showing the property owner's house that's across the street. Our zoning, future land use. Staff finds that the requested variance meets the criteria required for issuance of a variance in LDC Section 45-833. Staff gives the recommendation of approval of the requested variance to allow for the increase of square footage from 250 square feet to 480 square feet, subject to the following condition. The applicant shall either install landscaping in the form of shrubbery planted 24 inches on center at a height of 24 inches at the time of planting, or retain in all natural vegetation along Morris Lake Drive, with the exception of the area needed for driveway access. Questions?
Any questions for staff? Okay, before we proceed, let's do a site visit roll call, please.
Roy Weaver,
Yes.
Ron West,
Yes.
Mary Ratliff,
Yes.
Linda Osborne,
Yes.
William McGahee.
Yes.
Okay, the applicant is Larry and Tammy Lester. Are you here today? Okay, there's no one coming forward. Okay, so even if the applicant is not coming forward, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this application? No one's coming forward. Any wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, at this time, we will close it to the public and open it up for board discussion and motion.
Madam Chairman, I move we approve variance 24-00002 as it meets the criteria for the variance as required by Section 45-8333-833 of the Putnam County Land Development Code, with the condition recommended by staff, and authorize the chair to sign the final order.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve variance 24-000002. Is there any further discussion? If none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5. Motion carries 5-0. Staff, you will need to, I guess, notify the applicant of the 30-day appeal process as well as the outcome. Okay, we do an ex parte communication and conflict of interest for next application of variance 24-000003.
Roy Weaver,
No.
Ron West,
No.
Mary Ratliff,
No.
Linda Osborne,
No.
William McGahee.
No.
Okay. Staff?
Thank you again, Jennifer Gazelle, Planner 2. This is variance 24-000003. The applicant is John and Genevieve Mamino. Location is 110 Gem Lake Drive in Crescent City. Parcel size is 0.67 acre. Zoning district is agriculture. Future land use is agriculture. The request is a variance from Land Development Code 45-105 to reduce setbacks for an accessory structure. This property was originally recorded on April 27, 1971 in its current configuration and legal description. The applicant became legally connected to the parcel on November 11, 2000. The parcel had a home developed on it before the applicant obtained the parcel. Several provisions in the LDC are already in place for reducing the setback requirement. LDC Section 45-514 in particular grants even greater reduction for the preservation of trees with a caliber of 6 inches or greater than that which the applicant is requesting. As such, no special privileges are being granted. The applicant is claiming tree protection as their reason for needing this variance. If the applicant had settled for a smaller variance, staff could have administratively granted it. However, due to the need for more space, a board variance was required. Our aerial view. Zoning, future land use, Staff finds that the requested variance meets the criteria required for issuance of a variance in LDC Section 45-833. Staff recommends approval of the variance for the reduction of setback requirements for an accessory structure in the agriculture zoning district from 25 feet on the front to 10 feet and from 10 feet on the sides to 5 feet. Questions?
Any questions? Okay, staff, I need to recant on the ex parte communication for me. I had forgotten that I was looking for the property and the sign was down, and so there was a gentleman walking along the street with his dog, and so I asked him where the property was, and he said, that's mine. And so that was no discussion of the case whatsoever.
Okay, well, Madam Chair, was there anything in or about this communication which would affect your ability to consider and decide this matter in a fair and equitable manner?
No, none.
Okay, fine.
Okay, I guess we're up for site visit roll call then.
Troy Weaver,
Yes.
Ron West,
Yes.
Gary Ratliff,
Yes.
Linda Osborne,
Yes.
Willie McGahee.
Yes.
Okay, John and Geneva Mamino. Okay, would you like to come forward? Are you? Okay, so you don't need to speak today? Okay, you're good? Okay. All right. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to come forward and speak in favor of this application? Anyone wishing to come forward and speak in opposition? If none, this will be closed to the public and open up for board motion and discussion.
Madam Chairman, I move we approve variance 24-00003 as it meets the criteria for variances required by Section 45-833 of the Putnam County Land Development Code and authorize the chairman to sign the final order.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve variance 24-00003. Any other comments? Okay, all of those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries 5-0. However, there is a 30-day appeal process, so if you have any questions or concerns, please work closely with staff. Now, if anybody, if you two do not want to stay, feel free to get up and leave, or you can sit for the other presentations. Thank you, and good luck in your endeavor. Okay, the next case up we will do is special use permit 24-00001. We will do ex parte communication and conflict of interest roll call.
Troy Weaver,
No.
Ron West,
No.
Gary Ratliff,
No.
Linda Osborne,
I had two phone calls this morning wanting to know the correct email address so I could be sent a letter of concern and opposition. So the case was not discussed, though.
That'll be fine, Madam Chair.
Okay.
That'll suffice.
Willie McGahee.
No.
Okay.
This application is for a borrow area in the agriculture zoning district. The applicant is Krebs Holding Inc. The agent is Gulfstream Designs Group LLC. Location is at 731 Coral Farms Road in Florahome. Future land use is agriculture, zoning district agriculture. The proposal is for a special use permit to allow for a borrow area. Before I go into the details and the background information, I just wanted to make everyone in the room aware that this is the first step in a very long process. Should this be approved today, it then has many different agencies that it has to go through for final approvals before a shovel can be put in the ground. Should this be approved today, it will then go to DRC, when all of the different agencies will then be involved. Department of Health, DEP, Public Works, many different other agencies that are going to take a look at this. So I just want you all to be aware of, if this leaves here today with an approval, that does not mean they're going to start digging tomorrow. The project site comprises of 8 parcels totaling 333.48 acres. The borough area will encompass 30 acres. The maximum depth of borough activities are 60 feet. The parcel has direct access to Coral Farms Road. The borough pit to be completed in 4 phases over a 5-year period. Borough activities will avoid areas of wetlands and include a 25-foot buffer between borough activities and the wetlands. The hours of operation will be 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and the reclamation plan is an artificial fish pond. Our aerial view of all 8 parcels. Zoning. Future land use. Wetlands. Staff finds that the proposed borough area meets the criteria for a special use permit. Staff recommends approval subject to the following conditions. The property owner shall submit a recorded declaration of unity of title for the parcels to be affected by the borough area, and a borough area permit shall be issued prior to removal of material from the site, and the site work permit shall be granted for no more than 5 years with the opportunity to renew the site development permit for 1 additional 5-year period. And all excavations shall be a minimum of 25 feet from property lines of abutting property in separate ownership, and a minimum 25-foot natural vegetative buffer will be maintained between excavation area and wetlands. And the side slopes of the borough area will be kept at a maximum 4-to-1 slope. And the applicant shall provide a letter of credit / surety bond or cash equivalent for the reclamation of the site in the amount to be determined by the Department of Public Works prior to the commencement of any borough activities. And a 6-foot-high fence shall enclose the excavated area, and the hours of operation shall be limited to 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and the existing vegetation between the proposed borough area and any residential structure existing at the time of site work permit approval shall be retained in order to ensure sufficient buffer from the proposed use. Questions?
I have a question. Clarification, because it says a 30-acre borrow pit. I always thought there was a restriction of 5 acres per borrow pit.
I'm going to defer to Zachary Baker on that.
Zachary Baker, Planning and Development Services. If I can address your question, Madam Chair, any borrow area in which the dirt is leaving the site in which it was excavated larger than 1/8 of an acre requires a special use permit. Borrow areas can be up to 30 acres. Anything over 31 acres or more is considered a mine. Has to be processed as a mine. There has to be a master mining plan. It has to have a future land use and zoning designation of that of a mine.
So this is not a typical borrow pit, then? It's considered a mine?
No, ma'am. No,
Oh,
ma'am. This does
still
not.
a borrow
This
pit?
does not constitute a mine. All we're doing here is excavating dirt. There's no processing of dirt, and it does not exceed the threshold for what a mine would be.
Okay, so it cannot exceed the threshold of 30 acres.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? All right, let's do a site visit. Roll call, please.
Roy Weaver,
Yes.
Ron West,
Yes.
Mary Ratliff,
Yes.
Linda Osborne,
Yes.
Willie McGahee.
Yes.
Before we continue, I know we have, I think, some attorneys in the office and then the audience today. Would you please identify yourselves if you are an attorney? Okay. The reason I ask is that this is going to be handled a little bit differently today because the presentation by the applicant at any time, if you are not an attorney with that group, you can object and ask for clarification, so like a semi-court procedure. So this is something different that we're doing today than we've done maybe in the past. So just wanted to clarify that. So the objection is right then and there, and you're not waiting until they finish. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the applicant
Upstream.
is Krebs Holding,
Krebs,
Inc.
yeah.
Would you,
Krebs Holding.
or, and the agent is Gulfstream Design Group LLC. So please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Lottie. I'm with Gulfstream Design Group, 2225 State Road A1A South.
I'm sorry, didn't catch it.
2225 State Road A1A South, St. Augustine,
Okay,
Florida.
all right, thank you.
Stuart Krebs, the owner at Krebs Holdings and Krebs Land Development. Address is 141 Star Lake Drive, Hawthorne, Florida, 32640.
Okay,
Hi, David Matthews. I'm at 70 Tahiti Cove, St. John's, Florida, 32259.
okay, thank you.
Cool. Madam Chair, Mr. Attorney, thank you very much for the opportunity. Staff's been great to work with. We have a PowerPoint here that will, I think, potentially provide some additional information for staff, the public, the board. I will give a brief introduction to the team, a quick project overview, and just complement a few of the things that staff has already given you in some additional detail. As previously discussed, Krebs Holding Inc. is the applicant. Gulfstream Design Group, I'm the civil engineer of record here, a licensed professional civil engineer in the state of Florida since 2010.
Okay, well, I'm having difficulty hearing. I don't know if anybody else, yeah.
Sure, I can speak up.
Excuse-
That's no problem. Mark Haydenbrook is the project surveyor. Legacy Engineering is the project's geotechnical engineer. And Icarus Ecological Services is handling all of the environmental components of this. As you heard from staff, there's no wetlands on site. I'll let the applicant just provide a few moments of statement here on the overview of their operations before we proceed with the rest of the presentation.
Hi, Dave Matthews. Yeah, we felt at this time it would just be good to describe Krebs Holdings and Krebs Land Development. I am an employee with Krebs Land Development. Krebs Holdings is the property owner, owned by Stuart Krebs. Krebs Land Development is a contracting company that specializes in land clearing and site prep work for residential, civil, and mining projects. And Krebs Land Development would be the operator of the Borrow Pit. So we felt it would be good just who is Krebs Land Development. So Krebs is a Putnam County-based company headquartered here in Palatka. It was begun in 2006 when Stuart Krebs, when the Iluka mine was operating. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Iluka Resources mine, but when that announced closure in 2006, Stuart was laid off and he acquired some equipment from that mining company and opened up his earth-moving company. And over time, since 18 years, from 2006 to 2024, he has grown that business to encompass various, civil works for both public and private companies. He has 41 Putnam County-based employees, and this project would support about 15 either direct or indirect jobs on the Borrow Pit, whether they're actually working at the site or back in the maintenance shop, maintaining equipment and so on and so forth. I'd also just like to point out that Krebs has a stellar safety record. I know safety may be of concern, and a lot of the work that we do falls under Mine Safety and Health Administration, and there are very strict safety rules in that sort of genre, and we do have a very excellent safety record. Anything else?
Yes, at the end of the day, so we've acquired this property in Florahome, and it's pretty valuable to us in a sense of the natural look. It's 350 adjoining acres, and to everyone here from Florahome, we don't hunt the property. If you guys ever see anyone out there hunting, just let my wife Rebecca Krebs know. But the reason for the Borrow Pit is just we were thinking at the end of the project it would be an attractive feature of the land, just having a pond. Who doesn't really like to have a pond if you have that much land to do it on? And Also, just to sort of try to capitalize and get some kind of return without some kind of huge transition of the property. So that's the primary focus we have at Krebs, is just to try to keep this local type work going. In our mind, a lot of these dump trucks you see running up and down the road now, we're not really adding additional trucks there, I wouldn't think. We're just sort of getting a source within the county. Just for instance, for septic mounds for new development, this material would work good for that, and house pads, and then also we do supply asphalt sand to a couple of asphalt plants, and so they're putting a couple of those up in Putnam County, I'm hearing. So that's our primary goal there, is just to capitalize a little bit off of the land, but then also in return have an attractive feature within the land. So that's, just wanted to give you guys our mindset on what we're thinking here.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for either one of these gentlemen this moment? Okay, thank you.
So as staff discussed, comprehensive plan land development code consistency, we're in the A1 future land use category. We're in the AG zoning district. It's an allowable use within the AG zoning district. And the intent here is consistent with the rural nature of the land, keeping in mind that we have the FPL solar field directly to the north of us. Just a site location there where you can see the actual project limits in gold, and the property boundary in blue. So this is pretty well set back into the property. As discussed, several parcel IDs. We have provided an application for the unity of title. Just a quick zoning map overview there showing that planned unit development directly to the north of us. Agriculture future land use map. You can see Flora Home to the south of us there. Here's a copy of our overall parcel plan. To the northern boundary, we're about 614 feet to the property line. The southern boundary, about 322 feet. The eastern boundary is about 1,175 feet, and the western boundary is about 1,677 feet to the edge of our project limits. So this proposed project is embedded fairly well into the property, taking up about 8.7% of the total site. As discussed, phase one will include about a 5-acre borrow pit. Phase two will expand to construct about a 20 to 22-acre pit and a 3-acre stilling basin, all remaining within that 30-acre or under project limits.
Okay, you start out really great, and then you sort of, so
Sure, no problem.
continue the volume, please.
No problem. That's fine. So distances to residential structures, LDC minimum is 100 feet. We're providing 330 feet to the nearest residence to the south of us there. Hall Road map, as discussed, we will exit to the south of the Clay Electric substation there. There is an existing cell tower on site. There's an existing access easement for that cell tower that the Krebs have provided to the owner of that tower. So we will utilize a portion of that existing road on site to access the project. Hall Road will be constructed in accordance with the Land Development Code, directly access Coral Farms Road. As you saw in your staff report, Coral Farms Road has a capacity of 14,300 daily vehicles. It's currently operating at about 1,300. So it's only operating right now at about 9% of its capacity.
Excuse me.
Hours of operation per the Land Development Code will be from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. No hauling on Sundays. Anticipate 120 daily maximum trips, 60 entering, 60 exiting. Screening and buffering, what you can see there in blue is the 50-foot perimeter buffer. As discussed, we're no closer than 322 feet to the nearest boundary line. Just a quick overview of that Hall Road. You can see the Clay Electric substation there directly to the north. And we will have that drive connection, as staff mentioned, permitted through Public Works, through DRC. 6-foot fence is called out there along the right-of-way line. 6-foot high rolling and locking gate will be about 75 feet into the property. and all in accordance with the Putnam County Land Development Code. No trespassing signs will be placed every 400 feet down the right-of-way. On-site, some of this access easement you see here is part of what we discussed previously with the cell phone tower, but we will have a 20-foot on-site haul road. On this slide, you can see the phasing. Phase 1 is inset within the larger proposed pit there. Future pit will be there with the stilling basin for the drainage. Special use site plan here as we provided with our application. No land disturbances other than the proposed 30 acres. 50-foot perimeter buffer minimum will be exceeded. Hall Road will restabilize and improve within that existing easement on site. The restoration plan, rim ditches will be demucked and filled, reestablish the slopes in accordance with the Land Development Code, and provide stabilization of the disturbed areas in accordance with the FDEP guidance. Finally, we will remove all silt fence when the project's done. Adjacent well map, we researched these wells through the Florida Department of Health. Putnam County Land Development Code requires a minimum of 200 feet setback from any potable water well. The nearest potable water well to our project is about 999 feet based on Putnam County GIS. Another layer of the permitting process, as staff mentioned, will be through the Water Management District. As part of that permitting process, we will have to provide a groundwater drawdown study, and that will provide results of potential groundwater drawdown based on any watering activities. Those typically do not exceed the property boundaries, but that model will provide reasonable assurance that there will not be any drawdown of adjacent wells. Facility map, we are to the north of Flora Home there. The majority of our truck traffic will be driving to the south. There's a few churches, but again, we will not be operating on days. No lighting, no signs are proposed. So in accordance with the LDC, we will just have the no trespassing signs, but there won't be any lighting. This won't be a nighttime operating activity. Just wanted to provide you guys a speedway and speed limit exhibit here showing you it's 45 in front of the project site, decreases to 35 in Flora Home, and increases back to 45 when the trucks hit State Road 100. Adjacent driveways, just wanted to show you here that our driveway will be consistent with the minimum spacing per the Putnam County Land Development Code, and again will be permitted through the Public Works Department. As staff mentioned, there is no FEMA floodplain on the site, so we don't have any FEMA work to address here. There are a few gopher tortoises within the project limits. As staff mentioned, there are no wetlands, but all the gopher tortoises will be permitted and relocated on site in accordance with the FWC permit criteria. Site safety and security. Site will be fenced and gated along the public right-of-way with no trespassing signs every 400 feet. Gate will be locked daily by the operator. And as you heard the applicant mention previously with their safety record, they are responsible for all on-site safety and operations. Just a quick summary here. All operations will be in accordance with all applicable permits for the site. We're only using up about 8.7% of this site. We're exceeding the land development setback criteria by at least 200%. And when excavation is completed, the restoration plan will include a stocked fish pond. With that, we're here to answer any questions that the board may have.
I have a couple of questions. Anybody else have questions?
I have one.
In your application, it was quite lengthy. I was trying to read it, and it says that there's no, let me see, when was the traffic study completed? Because you made mention of the use of the Coral Farms Road. It was only at like 9% capacity.
Yes, ma'am. That was in the staff report. That came
Maybe I didn't. I thought I printed out everything. Was a traffic study completed?
No, ma'am, it's not a traffic study, it's a traffic count.
Traffic count.
Yes, ma'am,
okay.
and that information was gathered in 2022.
2022.
Yes, ma'am.
And who did the information or the gathering?
I can't remember the name of the firm, but it went out for bid through the RFQ process, and we awarded them the contract. They did a traffic count on approximately 76 roads throughout the county. And fortunately, because it's not always the case, Coral Farms Road was one of those roads that they gathered data on.
Okay, that's when you run over the black
Yes, ma'am.
thing on the road. Okay, and just out of curiosity for my own knowledge is like, explain the sump process.
The stilling basin?
It says, it just says the, let me find my place where I am.
So the stilling basin is
Start out
there.
with install erosion and sediment controls, and then you go down to evacuation of area to begin in the development of the material sump for connection to dewatering pump.
So these borrow pits, there's multiple methods of dewatering. You have well points, you have socking and trenching. These borrow pits are typically excavated by reaching a point deeper than the water table, using the equipment to dig into the water table, and then you put a pump into that sump that you've created. It's part of almost any borrow pit that is dug, I would believe, in the state of Florida.
Is it
Sorry.
pumped back into the
It's pumped into the
excavated
stilling
area?
basin. So there's a 2.3 or just over 2 acre stilling basin that is there. In order to dry excavate the material from the pit, the water is pumped from the pit bottom up into the stilling basin. Any sediment settles out into that stilling basin, and the water is then transferred via gravity into the rim ditch, which surrounds the pit. The rim ditch is what allows the non-sediment water to re-infiltrate back into the groundwater table to essentially keep the water cycle going and rehydrate the soils.
Okay, when they do the study with St. John's Water Management, how close is the aquifer to this particular piece of property, or is it in question here?
I don't believe that's in question if that was directed at me.
Well, I
But-
thought maybe staff had, I was going to ask staff that.
We don't have that information, ma'am.
Okay, do you, as the applicant, have that information as far as the aquifer is concerned?
We have not completed the groundwater model as of yet. That would come with the actual technical construction plan permits, but in all of these that I've done, we've provided that reasonable assurance, and there is no adjacent off-site drawdown of the
Okay,
groundwater.
speak up.
I'm sorry.
Sir, you cannot interrupt. I will get to you in just a minute, unless you're an attorney. No. Are you an attorney? Okay, then I will get to you in a minute. We are still conducting the question. Excuse me. Thank you. Okay, and the other question I have is that in your report it says it will not diminish or impair property values. Has a real estate or a broker been involved in determining any of this information?
No, ma'am, not on our behalf.
Okay, is this going to, for staff, is this going to be a requirement? We do not have anyone on staff to do that, correct?
We do not have a property appraiser within the Planning and Zoning Department. However, the Putnam County Property Appraiser's Office is one of the reviewing members of the Development Review Committee.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then also on 7-10, it says that the proposed special use will not adversarially affect the general public health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Putnam County. An application may not be denied on these bases unless the Zoning Board of Adjustment makes findings as to the specific manner in which the proposed use would have such adverse effects. My question is, when did the responsibility fall on the Zoning Board of Adjustment to decide those adverse effects? Is that just based on the criteria?
Madam Chair, yes, ma'am. The Zoning Board of Adjustment is to ensure adherence to those 10 issuance criteria in 45-1083. Staff's objective is to demonstrate how those criteria meet with the requirements of the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan. So we are simply making a recommendation to you based on our analysis of those two documents and the criteria and the proposed development at hand.
Okay. Just had never seen that before. Okay, I guess that's all my questions. So, any other questions from the board?
You took care of all of them.
I have an observation. Looking at your map here, how close does the southern part of this property come to you, 100, State Road 100?
We are about 1 mile.
So you don't butt right up next to,
No, sir.
okay.
Okay. Any other questions from staff for these gentlemen?
To answer your question, we're just under 1 mile from our driveway connection down Coral Farms Road.
Yeah.
South.
What I was getting to is if the property came to 100, would it be possible for the trucks to come in and leave that area and stay off of Coral Farms Road?
Everybody,
There's a couple
Please,
things there, so
give us
there,
a chance. You will
there
have
is
your
a-
chance to speak.
sorry. There is a driveway entrance there, but it goes across the rails to trails, and it has restrictions on it. And also, to get across there, you'd have to cross through a wetland on the southern end of the property. And so it would just be a lot more entail, and I just, we just didn't think it would be feasible, because on top of that wetland crossing, you'd then have to get permission to go across the.
Well, I was just concerned that
Yes, sir.
probably 90% of the concern out here is the traffic on Coral Farms Road. And if there was an alternate way you could come in and out, that could take care of a lot of the objections.
I think that the consideration of that direct access to the rails to trails and having that extra potential vehicular and pedestrian interaction at that site is probably a less safe alternative than utilizing the intersection of Coral Farms Road and State Road 100.
Pardon me.
Excuse,
My understanding, Coral Farms Road as logging trucks and heavier trucks using it during the day. I'm not a resident there. I don't live there. I fully acknowledge that. But my understanding from some of the residents there is that there is existing heavy truck traffic out there. So the majority of these trucks will be Krebs' own drivers. And each one of these drivers does maintain a professional certification. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Some of the other concerns, I don't believe you're going to hear any engine braking. You're at 4,200 feet from our exit to State Road 100. I just don't see those trucks being able to accelerate and then decelerate. So you're probably looking at 35 to 40 miles an hour down that entire road. I can speak up, I'm sorry, just tell me if I get too loud.
okay, no, you're
I'll go
fine.
back to that way.
I'd rather have you loud.
That's great. So, yeah, I think that you're going to hear that, there's existing truck traffic out there when some of the public gets up to speak. And, again, these are professional drivers, that this is their job. This isn't a site that is open to the public where anybody's going to be there with their pickup truck and a dump trailer getting loaded for dirt. These will be Krebs' own drivers and vehicles and citizens and residents of Putnam County, as you heard them say, operating these vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Okay, Ms. Rattler?
is it possible for staff to pull up a map again so I can take a look at it? Just that one. Okay, how many residents are affected, if you can tell me, from your exit of the road down to 100?
You mean along Coral Farms Road? How many? I can look that up for you while the public is.
I would like to know how many people reside between your exit onto Coral Farms Road and to get to 100?
Okay, let me work on that while we have public comment. I think we've got
Thank
some
you.
time to
Miss
get you that answer.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
Ms. Ratcliffe, if we were able to tell you how many notification letters we sent out, would that be sufficient? We made sure to grab everyone more or less in that southeast corner of the property between Coral Farms, State Road 100, and the property itself in question.
It would help.
Sir, you'll get your time. There were 159 notification letters sent out.
Okay, thank you.
Is that 159 individual or is that considered a household?
We sent it to property owners, so
Property owners,
159
okay.
property owners.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other questions for them? Okay, I'm going to ask, do any of the attorneys have anything they would like to cross-examine? Would you like to come forward, please? Gentlemen, just stay. You may be needed. Okay, please, for the record, state your name and address.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Byron Flagg. I'm an attorney with the law firm Gray Robinson in Gainesville, Florida, and I represent Mr. and Mrs. Louise and James Clark. They are owners of property immediately adjacent to the project site, and later on, when I have an opportunity to present my information to you, I will have a map and an affidavit from my client to show you exactly where their property is located.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, I have a couple of questions of the applicant.
Okay.
This question is for Mr. Lahit, I believe it is? Lati, thank you. Would you agree that the project location that you're applying for a borrow pit is actually located in an area that's designated in the future land use map series as an aquifer recharge area? Would you agree to that statement?
That it is a recharging area?
I'm asking if
Actually,
you...
I just wanted to clarify because I didn't understand what you said.
Yes, Madam Chair.
I think if I could get this list of questions and then respond after public
Okay.
comment, that would be...
Give me a chance to research and,
Sure, and just for the record, my question is asking them to confirm that the project area location for this proposed borrow pit is actually located within the low impact area to the aquifer recharge area map that's included in your county's future land use plan. That's my question. Is it or is it not? And Mr. Lahit,
please speak into the mic a little bit.
do you agree that
Yeah, thank
your firm has not conducted a traffic impact study for the expected number of trucks that will be using the county public roads in the immediate area? Do you agree with that statement?
I'll come back to the podium if you want to just give me your question.
That's my question, if you can go ahead and answer.
That's the last one.
No, I have several more.
Just go ahead and give them all.
What size will the dump trucks or the trucks that will be removing the material, what size of trucks are those proposed to be, or will they be? That's my third question. My fourth question is, how many tons of material that are excavated from the borrow pit will be placed into each one of these trucks? That's my fourth question. We'd like to know exactly what size of trucks will be hauling material off and how much will they weigh. I'd also like to know, my other question, Mr. Lahit, is whether or not you've consulted with a traffic engineer or a road engineer to determine the impacts to the public road that will be caused by those dump trucks that are hauling that material, especially on Coral Farms Road. Our other question is, has your firm conducted any historical resources surveys or archaeological surveys regarding this site where you're proposing to put the borrow pit. We have a question for the property owner, Mr. Krebs, whether or not after the borrow pit is converted into a fish pond, whether or not there are future plans for any kind of residential development associated with that future fish pond.
Mr. Krebs, do you want to answer that now, or you want to wait until you come back with all the rebuttal? Okay.
And for the agent for the property owner, do you agree that the reclamation plan that you've submitted with your application, is that the entire content of your reclamation plan, or is there anything else regarding your reclamation plan that you will be submitting to the county after this date? And have you, regarding the traffic count and impacts to the county roads, would you all agree that when you break down 80 trucks per day operating to and from your site from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday, would you agree that that equals or approximates to about one truck operating on the site or leaving the site or coming to the site every 7 to 8 minutes per hour? With regards to the safety procedures that you all follow, you earlier mentioned that you follow safety procedures similar to mining operations. My clients have a question regarding whether or not that includes reverse warning beeps on heavy vehicles, and whether any time a vehicle is backing up on the property, whether it is required by mining safety operations or OSHA safety operations or your own safety operations to sound off a warning beep, and whether that will be emanating across the area. And also, would you agree that whether or not Coral Farms Road is designated as a, quote, local road in your in the county's comprehensive plan and on the future land use map series? And that those comprehensive plan questions may be questions that staff can answer. That's all I have for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Lay, you want to take a little time before we, I understand. You want to take a little time before you respond? Okay, yeah, that'd be fine, unless you just want to sit back and think about the answers to his questions.
No, we can run through the rest of the attorneys.
Okay,
and maybe
all right.
some consistent ones here, and then
Okay,
I can
all right, sounds good.
try to rebut.
All right, come forward.
Madam Chair, I was going to ask if we have a microphone here. I don't know if that would be helpful. That way you're going to bring it away. Madam Chair, good afternoon, rather. My name is Jeremiah Blocker. I'm from the Douglas Law Firm. I work out of the Ocala office. I'm here representing a number of different residents here. I'll give this over.
Okay, I have a question for the attorney, our attorney. If he's representing the residents, is he speaking for them at this time, or are they going to be allowed to also speak?
No, ma'am, they'll be allowed to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am. So if I could just ask Mr. Lottie just a couple of questions. I want to make sure I'm not touching on what my colleagues offer here, but just to clarify, that there has been no traffic study conducted, that's to your knowledge. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We've provided what's a requirement with the application process for the land development code, and a traffic impact analysis is not part of that.
Understood. You can just do a yes or no. This would be, I understand. No groundwater study?
No, that has not been completed yet.
Okay. No property appraisal has been conducted?
Not yet, no, sir.
Okay. Any sinkhole studies that you're aware of?
No, sir.
Okay. Are you aware of how many bus stops are located along Canal Farms Road?
On Coral Farms Road, no, sir, not particularly.
Okay, so so the answer is no, you do not know the answer?
Not the exact number, no, sir.
Okay. Are you aware of any cost evaluations or feasibility studies for improving or resurfacing that Canal Farms Road by either,
It's Coral.
I'm sorry, Coral. I'm
Coral
sorry.
Farms Road.
Fighting off
Okay.
cold here. Are you aware of any feasibility studies for the cost of resurfacing that road?
No, sir.
Okay. Are you aware of the county having any future plans to resurface that road?
Not, no, sir.
Okay, and you can say no, that's fine. I don't know if you know or not, so that's what we're asking. I heard testimony earlier, I may have to ask Mr. Matthews this, but I'll ask you as well. I believe it was brought up that lights, there will be no lighting at the site, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What is the safety protocol during, early, sunset hours during the winter months? What's the safety protocol for that going to be?
I'll have to let the applicant address that.
Okay. Is that Mr. Matthews? Mr. Krieg? All right, well, why don't we do this? Can we get, Madam Chair, can he hit a microphone? That way he can answer my
They can,
questions. Do you mind grabbing the mic?
guys, you can go over there and stand. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Lott. I think we're good. Unless you.
Yeah, so usually when we load out the first load in the morning, we wait for the daybreak to, come. And so that's really, in our other operations, that's what we use as a metric, sort of. So 7 a.m., the equipment can start up and start prepping material and getting it ready. And then, if it's still dark, we'll wait for daybreak.
Okay, so, sir, could you elaborate? I understand, so y'all would wait for daybreak. Can you elaborate on that? Because you're going to have, this time change, sunset at different
yes, sir.
hours?
Just visibility. So the drivers are trained to, if there's not good visibility, they stop their trucks.
Okay, what about times where you're having driving where, the time changes, right? It's the winter months, they're driving along the road. I mean, it's not like flip a switch and sunlight is gone. What are the safety protocols y'all will put in place other than what you stated?
It's the same thing. They go by just the visibility. So the
Okay.
time doesn't matter. It's the visibility.
Okay, so
So
visibility.
the fog, if the fog is really dense, they park their trucks. They pull over.
And who is assuring that? Who is the quality control on that, making sure that's happening?
Well, we have several safety officers, and then we have a truck foreman.
Okay, who is responsible for making sure that that's followed through? Is that you, sir, as the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you have the ultimate responsibility of that.
At the end of the day, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay,
That's all I
thank you.
have.
Any other questions from the attorneys?
Actually, Madam,
Okay.
I do have one more. Let me just clarify.
State your name again for the record.
Jeremiah Blocker, ma'am. So just to clarify, Mr. Griggs, so you as the owner, so you will be responsible for ensuring these safety protocols are followed.
Yes, sir.
Will you be at this site during the hours of operation?
No, sir. We delegate leadership down, and I'm the ultimate responsibility, but we have leaders that are trained to follow those protocols.
Will that be Mr. Matthews?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to proceed with having comments from the residents of Coral Farms. Okay, sir?
One question, ma'am.
Please come back to the podium.
Just for purposes of maintaining a record, keeping a record, I was hoping that the applicant and their agent would be able to answer my questions
Yes,
on
sir.
the record right now.
Although you want them answered right this minute, or you're not going to give them time to go back and think about it?
I can provide the majority here
Okay.
right now.
That's
So,
fine.
As previously discussed with Mr. Blocker, the traffic impact analysis is not part of the application process, so that has not been provided. Neither has the groundwater study. That is all forthcoming with the technical applications to the Water Management District. It's not a requirement of the Putnam County Land Development Code for this hearing. I'll let Mr. Krebs and Mr. Matthews address the size of the dump trucks, the tons of material. They may not have that tonnage math here today. The historical resources and cultural assessment is all part of the Water Management District's, the St. Johns River Water Management District permit application process. So that will be met at that time. I'll have to let the applicant address the reverse warning lights, the tons of material, the future plans. So I'll let the applicant address the size of the dump trucks and the material placed in them.
And so the material placed in the trucks, we have two different types. We have the tractor trailer trucks and the straight dump trucks. And so we have 6 of the tractor trailer trucks, and the rest are the smaller dump trucks. And our guys are really familiar with overweight tickets, so they know that that's a negative impact on them. And some of the loading equipment, not all of it, has scales on board, so they're able to get that right on. And once they get that feel for how many buckets it takes to fill the truck with that type of material, it's been a non-issue for us. And so the smaller trucks will haul 18 tons. The larger trucks, they can get up to 25. But they're spread out over, I mean, it's all within compliance with the DOT. And so I would imagine the DOT would have, or the county would have built these roads to handle that ground pressure.
Madam Chair,
Okay, you have some,
just briefly, quick follow-up
sure.
questions. Thank you, Madam Chair. So,
Talk to the mic, please.
Mr. Krebs, just to be clear, you're not sure whether or not your trucks are rated to be able to operate on Coral Farms Road, which is a county road. You don't know that for sure, correct?
There's no weight limits that I'm aware of.
And the one question, good job, Mr. Lahid, I'm trying to answer all my questions. I've just got one other follow-up question. Are you aware that the project site is within the county's future land use map series for aquifer recharge areas?
I do not have that answer at my fingertips. That is one that I need to answer unless you're telling me that.
If you knew that, would you have put that in your application materials?
I would have, yes. Did not come up during any of the review process or the comments with staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Does that conclude?
I think the final conversation here was about Coral Farms Road and the condition of Coral Farms Road. Typically with these applications, the applicant would take asphalt cores to determine the existing conditions of Coral Farms Road prior to the commencement of operations. And then there would be a bond placed with the county which would account for any impacts that occur to Coral Farms Road due to the operations would be covered either by the applicant or that bond.
Okay, I have a question because there was a statement, there was 80 truckloads of round trip would be 160, but I thought in the application it only said 60.
60 total,
But in the round trip would be 120.
120, yes, ma'am.
Okay, because there was a statement of 80, and so that'd be 160. so-
Yeah, for the record, 60.
Okay.
And those are all maximums, right? Those are maximum operating hours. Those are maximum truck trips. By no means could that encompass the minimums or the averages. That's
Correct.
That's a maximum.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, then we will go back to having the residents be able to speak, but since there's a large number of people that want to speak, I am going to limit the comments from the residents to 3 minutes. So we have a timer, and we are going to please ask you to adhere to that time limit because I have a lot of people that want to come up and talk. So please be succinct and feel free to give us your opinion and be civil about it. Okay, so the first one that I have, I'm going to start with Mr. Thomas Moore has a speaker card here for in favor of. So, Mr. Moore, would you like to come up? Please give us your name and address for the record.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Thomas Moore. I live at 130 East Dogwood Road, which is basically directly across the street from where they're going to be doing the burrow pit. I am also an employee of Cribs. I am the manager of all the trucks. I run the safety. I run all the production. The Coal Farms Road has been rebuilt not too long ago. The bridge was upgraded, which we will not be crossing the bridge. But the burrow pit It's no different from any other pit that we drive in. The only two mines that we drive in is Newberry and Jacksonville. Those are mines. What we are doing, we're just digging a little dirt for a pond, nothing major.
Please, hold your comments. Everybody's going to have a chance, and it's just asking you, please, to be civil. That's all. Okay, continue.
That's it. I run all the trucks. There won't be 120 trucks rolling in there. I run,
Your round trip would be
I
120,
run,
yeah.
there's 10 trucks, and 2 of them are spares. So, and we usually run about anywhere from 5 to 10 loads a day per truck, depending on how far it's got to be driven.
Okay,
And that's it.
all right. Any questions from Mr. Moore, from staff, or, from the board? Okay, thank you, sir. All right, I have one here that says it's neutral, so Mr. Richard Back. No, please, wait. Yeah, we do, because we want you on record.
My name's Richard Beck. I live directly across from the solar panel farm on Coal Farms Road. May I ask a question of the Krebs
No,
Company?
sir, you ask us.
Okay. What entry and exit point for this operation are they currently using?
Okay, I thought that was answered, but continue, and I will let the gentleman for the applicant come forward and answer that
So
question.
I understand there's been no hydrology study done other than, or has anyone contacted or proof of contacting the St. Johns River Water Management other than stating that at the current step of the process will contact the St. Johns River Water Management District. So I am believing that there is or has been no contact to the Water Management District. If I'm wrong, please accept my apology. If I'm right, please insist that the evidence or information or question is answered for the people who are most affected. As far as the traffic studies done, Florida Power and Light, in all its gracious attitude and required by the county commission, I believe, resurfaced portions of Coal Farms Road due to the traffic coming in and out. But the most of the traffic was personal vehicles, employees, very few semi-truck loads of material. I think there was 700, 800 panels delivered. Those were not that heavy. What we're talking about is a lot of weight on a dump truck. The area that they want to mine is at least a reusable property if it is operated and owned right. If the owners of the property decide for a sale after a 5-year use, that would be great. Maybe somebody could have their own 30-acre fish pond, and it could be used as an agricultural project or ownership. Where's the dirt going? Does anybody know? Absolutely, I reckon they don't, so nobody's answered it.
Doesn't matter.
I could understand Mr. Krebs' position about it may take longer to get the dirt to wherever it's going, but where is it going? You could carry this project on for 5 years. They are going to 4-lane Highway 100 between Stark and the airport in Palatka. That's in the plan 2025 as soon as they finish up the overpass project in Stark.
Mr.
Is that 3
Beck,
minutes?
You got 3 minutes.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
When can I get the answer to my
I
questions?
will, I'll tell you what, before we started this meeting, I think the planners had said that there is a long process, and this is the first step. So, Mr. Baker, would you like to explain everything else that is entailed in getting this application up and going?
Thank you, thank you, Madam Chair. So yes, if the Zoning Board of Adjustment takes action and approves the request today, starts off a 30-day appeal period. From there, we look to the Development Review Committee. The Development Review Committee is chaired by the Planning Department. We reach out to name a state agency, and they have eyes on the project. We have notes and hearing processes, meetings that take place for that committee, in which every single agency that is invited comes in and decides whether or not the proposed use satisfies their regulations. Again, whether that's DE, St. Johns River Water Management District, DOT, Public Works, you name it, they will have a say on this project. Once all of the committee members agree unanimously that this project can move forward, we issue a final development order to the applicants. From there, the applicants then have to provide us with a borrow pit application. That borrow pit application will include water table study, core samples, dust and erosion control plans. You have it to ensure that this will not degrade the groundwater. Once all of those criteria have been reviewed and approved by our Public Works Department, then we would issue the 5-year site work permit. The applicants would have 5 years to complete their excavation. If they cannot, for whatever reason, due to the requirements of the Land Development Code, they have the ability to extend. If they fail to extend within 30 days of that expiration, then the special use permit is null and void, and they have to come back in front of the board and go through that process all over again.
So originally my questions are basically just talked around but not answered. But I thank you for your time, Madam Chairman. I yield.
Well, I don't see us talking around it. I just see that the process is a little bit more involved than everybody realizes. It's just not approval or denial here. So anyway, that's my two cents. Okay, James McDavid is in opposition. Would you like to come forward? Please state your name and address for the records.
My name is James McDaniel. I live at 135 East Corbina Way, Florida. Am I allowed to begin?
Yes,
okay.
sir.
So, first of all, I want to say...
Please speak into the mic, because everybody in the audience wants to be able to hear what you say.
Understand. First of all, thank you for taking the time to listen to the residents of our community and our concerns about this pit, and then all the work that you guys do to make sure that our communities are zoned responsibly. That being said, I do have 3 opposition points to this borrow pit. The first one being ecological or environmental. There's obviously been a lot of research into the feasibility of this project, but in ecology and environmental sciences, we say one thing, that you never just change one thing. Everything always has cascading unintended consequences that are, if even possible to predict, take much more time than has been devoted into this process. I am really worried about the flood increase risk when this project is completed. We are going to be removing the grasses and the trees that are already working for us to absorb a lot of the excess water. Oak trees, for instance, are able to move a whole ton of water every single day that they are photosynthesizing. The grasses reach 6 inches or more down into the earth to hold on to the sediments. Flora Home doesn't have a big problem with flooding at the moment. That's due to our stewardship of our environment. If we're coming in here and changing and cutting things down and digging pits, that's going to change. Insurance companies across the state are leaving. If a big hurricane hits and we start to have flooding due to the mismanagement of our resources, who's going to pay for all the damages? The insurance companies aren't here. No one can afford insurance, even if insurance is here. My second point is Genesis book 1, chapter 26 tells us we have dominion over the earth, the sky, the land, the creatures that live here. It is our job to do everything we can to protect them and to clear a whole area of natural landscape, to dig a big hole, to take dirt away from our community and take it somewhere else. Honestly, it's kind of insulting to our community that that's all we're seen for is a resource extraction point. And two, this kind of a dereliction of the duty that we were given to protect our native and natural landscapes. My third point is about traffic safety, but not about the site safety. If we look at the application's numbers and we take them at face value, the trucks are going to be increasing traffic by 11%, if not more. They mentioned the Rails to Trails project as why they can't go out 100. They're crossing that when they go travel down through Coral Farms Road. There's a baseball field right next to Coral Farms Road where the Rails to Trails project is. We have a big fall festival across the street from the Rails to Trails project. There's a basketball court. Children are there. They can be as safe as they want. Accidents happen. Accidents with dump trucks are more often fatal. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, opposition, is it John West? Or Mest? I'm not sure how it, West, W-E-S-T, I think, West. John West. For the record, please state your name and address.
I want to make sure I get in this microphone. I can't hear. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, John West. I live in Gainesville, but I grew up in Flora Home, and that's my objective is to get a house built there. The land I grew up on, I have 2 sisters that live on that land. We're not right next to this. You could say we're across town, but in Flora Home, that's right next to it. It's a small community. We're on a hill. There's a canal, a drainage canal that goes around. Their property is laying right on it. So everything that they do could affect a lot more than it sounds like we're in a little basket here. My main concern is we're going down 60 feet. We've got a lot of wells that are that shallow, and they've been that way for a long time. I think this in a small community like that, what happens there will happen to all of us. So I know they haven't done the study on that yet. I'm kind of surprised that they get any kind of a go-ahead until that's laid out. That's my main concern. Another thing is the Coral Farms. If they come out and they go to 100, what does a dump truck look like when they take off and then we stop? They're not like another car. And when they start backing up, and this is the main road for people to come and go, the idea that we might get a fish pond on somebody else's land eventually is not great for me. Even in Gainesville, I still come about 60 times a year out to George's Lake to go fishing on that road. When I was a kid, we used to camp out in the woods, and we could listen to everything that come up down that road. We could tell what kind of truck it was. I've had people complain over on my side of town about noise that's happening across the highway, and those aren't noises anything like we're going to hear from this place. So those are my concerns. The water, the main thing. I don't want to end up with, have most of us having to dig new wells or anything that they contaminate there will affect us all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Everybody, please hold your applause. We understand you all are emotional about this, but it's taking time. All right, next one, opposition is Curtis Merritt. Mr. Merritt, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Curtis Merritt. I live on 147 East Dogwood Road. I'm right there on the corner of Coral Farms and Dogwood. I guess I'm like everybody else. There's several main concerns, but I'm also looking at the fact that Flora Home has been and is a community, a quiet community that involves people. We're not a desolate road with nobody on it. Floor Home itself is one of the oldest subdivisions in Putnam County, going back to the late 19th century. The quality of life we're looking at, is going to be impacted. And I'm hoping that if this goes forward, that at least we will be able to minimize that impact. There was talk about the interfering with the foot traffic on the trail. Well, Coral Farms Road, I live there. I see kids ride their bikes. I see skateboarders on Coral Farms Road. And yes, it is a little bit busier than they should be out there, but they're out there. Joggers, people walking, there is foot traffic on Coral Farms Road. And like we've also talked about, it goes right through a community. People living right along the road. So, like I say, my concerns is, that this is going to impact our quality of life out there between the noise, the extra traffic, the extra hazards. And I just hope that these are being addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Charles Breedlove. State your name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name's Charles Breedlove. Whoop, I'm a little loud on that microphone there. I'm here to oppose the passing of the Krebs special use permit. I'm an owner of 25 acres located at 413 North Payne Avenue in Florhome. My property shares a common 845 feet with the parcel asking for the zoning variance. I respectfully ask my opposition to become part of the official record of this hearing. I'm concerned that the destruction of the land will affect our water quality, health, and safety of our citizens, road conditions, create noise and air pollution, and lower our property values. There are environmental impacts not only immediately, but certainly long into the future. As we all know, water will find the easiest path to the lowest point. Removing soil 60 feet deep off of 30 acres can affect our wells and drain ground moisture, which affects our livestock and crops, be that hay or grapes. The Krebs Company is required to have an erosion plan. How does that affect the water flowing across our property to the low point? Will Krebs or Putnam County be testing our water wells prior to construction to monitor these wells far into the future? Citizen safety has to be a top concern. Coral Farms Road has multiple school bus stops, morning and afternoon. These children are waiting beside the road, well within the range of working time of these multi-ton sand hauler trucks. Not talking about a small truck, we're talking about semis, not to mention the danger to stop school buses. Anyone who has taken the drive north on Coral Farms Road knows it is narrow, the pavement is deteriorating, edges are broken, guardrails are extremely close, and in some areas there's no shoulder, and there are deep water-filled ditches. Noting the current road condition, what do citizens have to look forward to after the coming 5 years of abuse by oversized vehicles? Will Putnam County require Krebs Company to cover the cost of repairs and resurfacing? A document shared by Zachary Baker states the application will not be adversely affect neighborhood properties. No one on this zoning board can promise this. Please take note of the document provided to you where George Reichert used information compiled by Ms. Diane Height, which states properties closest to the gravel mine face the largest value declines. A gravel mine is not that different from a proposed borrow pit. My property could lose 30% of its value. I believe that is an adverse effect. I don't feel we've had time to research this project thoroughly. Please delay your decision to allow this time to research and make competent decisions regarding this matter. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I would just like to make a comment that I know there were several emails received by the staff, and all of those are part of the record. Am I correct? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Breedlove. Okay, Mr. Walter Dinkla. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. I'm Walter Dinkler. I reside at 139 East Dogwood Road, which is one property away from Coral Farms Road. However, I grew up literally on Coral Farms Road. Born in Grandin, grew up in Florhome on land adjacent to the road, so I've seen it since it was a dirt road all the way through its current state. I, like others, have multiple concerns about the proposed borrow pit. These include the impact on the water table, the effect on property values, etc. My focus will only be on the effect on Coral Farms Road itself. While the staff recommendations address traffic counts, it does not address impacts on the road itself. Coral Farms may be best described as having characteristics of a tertiary road. Being a tertiary road means it is built to a lower standard than those with higher traffic counts. It is intended to connect small, relatively isolated communities and not as a feeder to cities or industries. This road is more likely than others to provide direct connections to homes. The pavement, base, and subbase are built to lighter standards. A study titled Pavement Performances, Considerations for Heavy Traffic Loads examined the impact of heavier vehicles on the service life of paved roads. I can provide a full citation for the study if desired. The study analyzed the effect of different vehicle weights. One of the findings was that a fully loaded 10 cubic yard cement truck, roughly equivalent to a fully loaded dump truck, had the same impact on a road in one passage as 5,100 passenger vehicles. That means if you look at 60 per day, as has been stated today, that would have the same equivalent impact of 6,000 passenger vehicles. Or if you look at the 80 dump truck loads a day, as was in the application, that would be 408,000 passenger vehicle passages in one day. Another finding was that those roads not subjected to routine heavy traffic use need minimal treatment. Their service life could be as much as 50 years. In areas that saw a mix of heavy and light vehicles, the study found, quote, it was not uncommon to find a local access street, such as Coral Farms, that had undergone total structural failure intermingled with other streets that were in reasonably good shape. The study goes on to say, quote, the conclusion remains unchanged. Gotta take glasses off. For a given pavement section, an increase in loading applications beyond the assumed design loading model will hasten the deterioration of the pavement, thus causing the pavement to reach its terminal serviceability index prematurely. The effect of the proposed borrow pit would be to increase county expenditures to maintain, repair, and repave Coral Farms Road without an offsetting increase in tax revenue. It is in the county's best interest, as well as those more locally affected, to deny access to from Coral Farms Road. There's more if I can have like 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Furthermore, considering the impact addressed by others on the property values and indirectly property tax revenue, harm to the water table, decreased ability to mitigate environmental damage from storms, etc., it would be in the best interest of the county to deny the special use permit. Thank you for your time, and I will say I appreciate the efforts taken by the board and by the staff to address this approach.
Thank you, sir. Leslie Breedlove.
Hi,
Please.
my name is Leslie Breedlove. My property is at 413 North Pine Avenue. It has, again, as my husband said, 845 feet of shared fence. Okay. I know there was a little bit of talk, mention of the wildlife. My particular direction is to remind us about how the gopher tortoises, which are a protected species, do live on these properties. All of us have gopher tortoises on our properties. According to the Fish and Game Commission and the U.S. Wildlife Service, they are a threatened species. The FWC has a guide to living with gopher tortoises. It states it is against the law to damage, destroy, harass, or kill gopher tortoises, their burrows, or their eggs. Gopher tortoises must be moved out of harm's way before any land clearing or development takes place. Permits are required from the FWC for handling and moving tortoises. also stated gopher tortoises must legally be relocated before any land clearing or development takes place. According to Wikipedia, the gopher is considered a keystone species. It digs burrows that provide shelter for himself as well as 360 animal species, including the threatened eastern indigo snake. Gophers spend 80% of their time underground. On average, their burrows are 15 feet long and 6.5 feet deep, but can extend up to 48 feet in length and 9 feet deep. I worry about how a great big scooping machine can miss, these creatures. The gopher tortoise permits, according to the FWC, are required for any development-related soil or vegetation disturbance within 25 feet of a potentially occupied gopher tortoise burrow. Property owners must be issued a permit, and relocation of gopher tortoises must be complete before the development activities commence. There's my point. Who's going to watch out for these little guys? They're there. The I see it. It is the beginning of the process to protect not only the tax-paying residents of Flora Home and the threatened species living there. Begins with you, the Putnam County Zoning Board. Please thoroughly consider all angles of this invasion of the land, her wildlife, and we the humans who live on it and love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make a correction. We are not the zoning board. We are
I'm
the
sorry.
zoning board of adjustment.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. We do not have anything to do with rezoning.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. James Clark?
Thank you. My name is James Clark, and I own the property at 180 West Dogwood Road. Before I start, I'd like to point out 180 encompasses the 4 parcels attached to and directly south of that mining pit. So I'm the closest person. I'm affected the most by this.
Okay. Would you pull the mic up closer?
All right. I have a 5-page affidavit. My attorneys might take me a little more than 3 minutes to read, but I'll do the best I can.
I have your attorney. Let me just say, if we're going to limit every resident, just a 3-minute or at least 4 minutes, the attorney, Mr. Perry, does the attorney need to represent him? Or he can say?
No, he has a right to address the commission. We'd ask that you do it in 3 minutes. Your affidavit can be made part of the record, however, if that's what you would
I believe
like.
it will be.
I was just trying to limit his presentation if he wanted his attorney to speak.
Madam Chair, sorry to intermingle with the process. If I may make my presentation as soon as Mr. Clark is done with his public comment,
Okay.
which we're requesting is all right as an affected party participating in a quasi-judicial hearing, and I have copies of his affidavit, which I will give to the board's attorney.
Okay.
I'll try and read it as quickly as I can.
Okay.
I'm James Clark. I'm 70 years old. I'm competent to make these statements. My wife, Louise Clark, and I own 4 parcels of property in unincorporated Putnam County, 28.9 acres. The parcels are listed. Together, these parcels are 180 West Dogwood. Each of these parcels is adjacent to and shares a common boundary with the property owned by Cribbs Holding, which the applicant is seeking approval for the borough pit. We purchased the first 3 properties in 2003, and later the southernmost parcel from my wife's mother, and came into ownership of all 4 of them. The parcels where our house is located is our primary residence and is a homestead record of Putnam County. The Flora Home community has been our home for over 20 years, and we have no intention of ever leaving our beloved home. During the course of owning this land for the last 20 years, we've made substantial financial investments in improving the property, including a detached garage, guest accommodations, a workshop, a barn, horse riding training arena along the northern boundaries of our property, and a horse pasture. We also invested in agricultural business on the western side of our property, where we are actively cultivating and harvesting 2 types of bamboo. Asper and Henan, which is a temperate variety, and approximately 3 acres for commercial purposes. We have a business relationship with a buyer for the bamboo and are operating under an active contract with our buyer to buy as much marketable bamboo as we can possibly make. The contractual business relationship is expected to generate an annual income for us anywhere between $60,000 to $80,000 annually, depending on the quality of the bamboo in the market. We have grave concerns of potential off-site impacts caused by the proposed Burroughs Pit and its operations. Specifically, the airborne dust will cover our bamboo and damage or destruct our entire bamboo crop. Neither the county staff reports nor applicants has provided any competent, substantial evidence that such off-site harm and impact neighboring properties will not occur. In addition to our agricultural business, we've entered into a stewardship program with the federal government on our property, which requires commitment to land and wildlife conservation efforts. This is specially delineated property on our northern border, close to the pit, is subject to a conservation stewardship program agreement with the U.S. Department of Agricultural and Natural Resources Conservation Service to conserve the area of our property for preservation of the habitat, and also for pollinators and beneficial insects. By entering this program, the federal government, we have to comply with the program's requirements. We are financially compensated by the federal government, which in turn finances our agricultural business. The location of this area is adjacent to and shares a boundary with the applicant's property, which is not very good. We are also concerned about the relationship of the Burroughs Pit and the existing natural gas pipeline owned by Seacoast Gas. As a result of the construction of Seacoast Gas Pipeline on the northern boundary of our property, we're aware the state of Florida has identified archaeological and historical sites, which we had to go through in our process. We believe Putnam staff recommendations have failed to comply with objectives A15, A151, and A154 of the Putnam County's comprehensive plan. We require consideration of historical resources and archaeological surveys. On March 6, we received a letter in the mail, notice from Putnam County Planning Board notifying us that we are owners within 300 feet of the property for the special use permit. Not only does our property lie within 300 feet of the property, the proposed Burrough Pit, we are in fact immediately adjacent and share the boundaries of that property. Notably, none of the applicants clearly identify the distance between the proposed Burrough Pit and our property line. We have grave concerns about the digging and construction of the proposed Burrough Pit causing off-site impacts to our property, specifically potential for subsidence erosion, vibration causing damage to the foundation of our house and structures. The applicant has failed to provide any competent substantial evidence in engineering. All the property owners in Flora Home will all be negatively affected by this proposed Burrough Pit. We are the most affected because we are the closest in proximity, most likely will be harmed by the nuisance type problems typically caused by these Burrough Pits. We therefore demand to be legally recognized by this zoning board of adjustment as affected parties which possess legal right to participate in the quasi-judicial hearing in this matter and evidence to make legal arguments and examine either Putnam County staff or testifying representatives of the applicant. We condemn and strongly oppose the request to approve this special use permit based on the following: the fact that it is inconsistent with Putnam County's comprehensive plan, the proposed Burrough Pit is wholly incompatible with the surrounding agricultural and residential land uses, that the location is within Putnam County's comprehensive plan's Florida aquifer recharge area, and no substantial competent evidence has been provided to establish any harm will occur to the aquifer, that the proposed Burrough Pit calls for up to 160 trucks per day, every day, for the year 6 p.m., for a period of 5 years without any comment or opinion from Public County Works or an engineer regarding physical impact to Coral Farms Road. There is such an increase to the intensity and construction activity of heavy vehicles with no doubt cause unavoidable and unbearable nuisance such as noise, vibration, dust, and all this will impact the enjoyment of our property in violation of the county's property rights element of the comprehensive plan, goal J-1, recognizing our vested property rights, that the combined heavy vehicular activity, construction, and the Burrough Pit will result in nuisance effects, noise, vibration. No competent substantial evidence has been submitted by the applicant to address however such effects will be confined, that to the degree dust covers our sensitive conservative areas and bamboo crops, our agricultural business could be devastated or destroyed or completely wiped out, that this proposed location of the borough pit is so close in proximity to our property that it will no doubt have a detrimental effect on the market value of our property. Increased vehicular traffic. The proposed pit application does not take into consideration the known archaeological and historical resources. And lastly, that the agent for the applicant has failed to fully provide sufficient, competent, substantial evidence necessary for the Zoning Board of Adjustment to be able to render specific findings of fact establishing that this application meets the requirements for Putnam County Land Development Code, is consistent with the county's comprehensive plan, and that the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding land uses. Therefore, I strongly oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Mr. I'm assuming you are Mr. Clark's attorney. Please state your name again.
Yes, ma'am. Byron Flagg, attorney
Flagg,
for Mr.
okay.
Clark and Mrs. Clark. Madam Chair, if you'd prefer, I can wait till the end of public comment, if that is more efficient to the board.
Are you going to, what is your request as far as wanting it to end at the end? You have other questions for the attorney or the applicant, or?
No, ma'am. Just in the interest of trying to be efficient and follow the board's rules.
Just go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my comments are to the board. I want to first start out by just letting you know that I am a specialist in land use law. I have an advanced degree in land use and environmental law from the University of Florida Law School. And I only say that because this is the kind of work I do around the state. And I just want to point out to the board that the reason this type of land use is typically approved by way of a special use permit is because it's not automatically a property right that's considered a by right type of development that is already within a zoning category. And that's because sometimes county governments, when they pass their land use code, they decide at the outset of when they adopt their code, some types of land uses are just so impactful to surrounding properties or have such an effect on the surrounding community that these types of land uses in these zoning categories need to go through a special review process. And that's why we're here today. And that's why you've been assigned this role to approve special use permits. And I appreciate the staff's comments about the fact that this is only the first step, and that there are many other steps, and that there are other permitting agencies that will have a review of this application. But I think it's really important just to point out that the comprehensive plan and the land development code, that your county commission has decided we want the Zoning Board of Adjustment to make the decision on this type of land use proposal, a borrow pit. And your county commission has said, we're going to delegate that to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, these appointed volunteers, because we want the community to be close to this decision. And that's kind of the policy behind why this is in front of us here today. And so, yes, even though in the Land Development Code, as your staff has explained, there are other steps that will dig down deeper into some other criteria. However, now is the only time that my clients, the Clarks, and the other people who are affected have an opportunity to make a record in opposition of this concept, this land use concept of a borrow pit going into their community. This is it. And this decision in your deliberation should weigh heavily on your thinking and how you view the evidence that's been presented to you, because your decision needs to be based on competent, substantial evidence and specific findings as to whether or not the applicant who has proposed this has met the burden of providing competent, substantial evidence to meet the criteria in the code. We don't believe they have. And my client's affidavit has spelled it out as succinctly as we could. And I won't repeat everything in there for the interest of time, but I will tell you that if you look at your comprehensive plan, there are a series of maps that have been adopted with your comprehensive plan, and one of those maps is a transportation map, and that identifies Coral Farms Road as a local road. That local road is given a level of service assigned to it through your comprehensive plan, and that comprehensive plan level of service is incorporated into your land development code, and that level of service helps the county decide how much money are we going to spend on certain types of infrastructure and for this type of road. It's a local road. Level of service D means the county's infrastructure funding is going to be at a lower level. So when you hear the lawyers and the other people talk about the impacts to the roads and traffic, yes, perhaps right now at this stage, some of the criteria of the Land Development Code doesn't specifically require it, but your comprehensive plan suggests that it should be considered at this stage. And if it is not adequately considered, if you find it so, then it is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. And this entire special use permit by your code it has to be found to be consistent with your comprehensive plan. Also, if you look at your comprehensive plan, in that future land use map series, you'll also see an aquifer recharge area map. It is a broad general map with some color shapes with 3 different zones. And if you look at that map, you will see that this proposed borrow pit is actually located within the lower impact recharge area of the aquifer recharge zone area. And so, yes, while certain hydrologic and water studies or impacts to the water table may come later at the development review criteria stage, now is the opportunity to actually talk about it and get this board to have a broader view about, is this really consistent with our comprehensive plan? And if we don't think it is, we need to go ahead and say it and find that it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan. And furthermore, this board's role is to safeguard the public interest, how this will impact the community of Florahome, how this will impact the surrounding property owners. And Madam Chair, you asked at the beginning of the meeting, when or did we get delegated this role of analyzing whether or not this impacts the broader public interest and the safety of the public interest? Well, again, that is right in your land use code, where the county commission has decided, when they adopted the criteria for how to review a special use permit, they said, and one of those criteria will be, and it's broken down by your staff nicely in their staff report. And I'm referring to Land Development Code section 45-1083, subparagraph 10. One of the criteria is that this board should analyze whether the proposed special use will not adversely affect the general public health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Putnam County. An application for a special use permit may not be denied on this basis unless the Zoning Board of Adjustment makes findings as to the specific manner in which the proposed use would have such an adverse effect. And so while the public is coming up here and giving you many reasons and articulating many reasons, and my client has provided an affidavit with some maps showing their location and how they'll be affected, this is one of your roles, is to listen to all the evidence and all the comments that are presented today and decide, okay, are there certain things that I've heard today or that I've reviewed today that make me believe that I need to make a finding of fact that this special use permit application for a borrow pit is not in the interest of the general public health, or that it may create safety concerns for the general public or their welfare. And the last thing I will say is another thing, Madam Chair, that you pointed out at the very beginning of this hearing, which I think needs to be clarified, is that, is this a mine or is this a borrow pit? And I don't mean to make light of semantics or the way certain text is written into the staff report or into the applicant's report. But when you look at the staff report, the very second sentence is, the proposed borrow area will encompass 30 plus or minus acres within those 8 parcels. If you look at the cover page of the applicant's application, the cover page says 30 plus or minus acre project area. In your land development code, if a borrow pit were to exceed 30 acres in size, a strict reading of the code means that that is a mine, not a borrow pit. And so that's something that needs to be clarified, because if this project area exceeds 30 acres in size, your code says this is not a borrow pit, but it's a mine, and then we're in a whole different ballgame of land development code review and regulations, and we shouldn't even be here. So I leave the board with that, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I'm assuming with Douglas Law, you have a rebuttal?
Thank you. If I may.
Sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to be brief here. I
Please
appreciate
state your
y'all's-
name again for the
Yes,
record.
ma'am. Jeremiah Blocker. I represent a number of, gave a list to Madam Clerk. If I may, I have some materials I'd like to hand to the board member and to the clerk, if that's
Sure.
okay. Thank you. Let me see if I can pull this up briefly here. So if I can just briefly, I want to hit on a couple of things just as a preliminary. So just to be clear, and y'all understand this as a board, but the staff's role in this process is to review the information and then provide y'all with a recommendation. But ultimately, it's up to this board, y'all as the board members, and we appreciate your public service. This is your responsibility to render a final decision. As was stated earlier by one of my colleagues, this is the opportunity for the public to come forward and to raise their concerns. This is the forum for that to happen. The next step would be, obviously, a circuit court. So we appreciate your time, and thank you for doing it, but I want to make sure we clarify that. Like I said, I'm representing several residents that live in the vicinity adjacent to this property that are impacted. The proposed borrow pit currently, as it stands today, is not authorized. So under the Land Development Code, a borrow pit under 45.72, subsection E, subsection 7, larger than 1/8 of an acre requires a special use permit. So I want you to picture this for a moment. Under your Land Development Code, over 30 acres is essentially a mine. Anything over 1/8 of an acre requires a special use permit, which means as of today, this activity is not allowed unless you all render a decision on that. That's why they're here today, to request a special use permit. So we have two different ends of the spectrum, 1/8 of an acre and over 30 acres, which goes into a mine. So we are at the far edges of what your Land Development Code allows for a special use permit. So I want to make sure that we picture that, and then that's clear. The legal standard that y'all are following today is a quasi-judicial hearing. So y'all today are sitting in a role essentially as judges. That's why y'all made your disclosure at the beginning of the meeting. That's why y'all indicated what evidence you're evaluating. You know, the standard of proof that y'all are considering today is competent substantial evidence. That is the standard that you as board members are evaluating today as you listen to the testimony from different evidence. As the courts found in Florida Power Light in the city of Dania, competent substantial evidence is tantamount to legally sufficient evidence. Competent substantial evidence, it can be reliable or credible. It can be factually based and not supported by general statements. Now, what you've heard today from a number of residents who live there who are impacted by this, you've heard what we believe is competent substantial evidence of how this is going to impact their quality of life. And again, that's important for y'all to hear that, because this is the opportunity for these residents to share with you competent substantial evidence. The criteria that y'all have to evaluate, and I'll read from the code here, the board must make a decision based on the competent substantial evidence that was most convincing on the question of whether or not the application met and satisfied the criteria for a special use permit. Your section 45-1082, application issuance. At the conclusion of the hearing, the zoning board of adjustment shall make a formal determination that the proposed use meets the issuance criteria of this article. So your options today essentially are to deny the application outright. That's choice number one. And that's what the residents that I represent, that you've heard from today, are requesting. To grant the application with certain conditions, which the code allows. You're allowed to grant it with certain conditions. You all can impose additional conditions, or grant the application outright. Now, the adjacent property owners and the residents are requesting that you deny this outright. I think that's what you've heard from some of the residents spoken. I'm sure you'll hear from some more as well. The criteria for that, again, the burden of this right now is on the applicant. The applicant must show through competent substantial evidence that they have met the burden of satisfying this criteria. And we believe that they're lacking in several of your areas of criteria that you'll have to evaluate. That is number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 10. And I'm going to pull those up here, if I may. So criteria number 5, the special use will not substantially diminish or impair property values in the area, nor impede the orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for permitted use. Section 5, adequate access roads, on-site parking, on-site loading and unloading berths, and drainage have been or will be provided where required. Adequate measures have been taken to provide ingress and egress to the property that are designed in a manner to minimize traffic impacts on roads, local roads. And 10, the proposed special use will not adversely affect the general public, health, safety, welfare of the residents of Putnam County. Now, the technicality here is you cannot, essentially, that an application may not be denied on this basis unless a zoning board of adjustment makes findings as to the specific manner which the proposed use would have such an adverse effect. Now, we believe under criteria number 3 that this will adversely impact and will unduly restrict the enjoyment of permitted uses in the surrounding area. You've heard several testimony about the traffic impacts. What you're going to have here, what was in the application, is up to 80 trucks, which amounts to approximately 160 trips a day between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. The magnitude of that traffic volume is significant. I want you to consider that for a moment. Now, what was put on in testimony today, well, that's only about 60 trucks, but in their application, it was 80. So we have some discrepancy there in the substantial competent evidence that you have before you as from the applicant. But I want you to consider the impact that that's going to have on these residents. Essentially, on a road that's a 2-lane road, that you've heard testimony, there's some conditions to the road that make it at times, unsafe. It needs to be resurfaced. So that is significant. The safety issues of those road conditions along Coral Farms Road. There exists on one side drainage that's filled from time to time. On the other, you have some culverts that are disappearing. I'll show you some pictures. In your packet, I have a number of pictures that illustrate that. This creates can create, and we believe will create, unsafe conditions when you have 80 trucks going, amounting to 160 trips a day from early in the morning until really late at night. Now, we're going to touch on this in a little bit, and you have in your packet, but there are over 10 bus stops, some for handicapped children, that intersect with that road that potentially could be impacted. So I want you to picture a fall morning with school buses lined up to pick up children along that road, with up to 80 vehicles coming and going from there. That absolutely sets up the reasonable expectation that there could be safety issues there. The lack of infrastructure. Again, we've talked, you've heard testimony about how some of the roads issues. Some of the comments in the staff report. One of the comments in the staff report, again, staff is doing their job. They do a great job. They're working hard. They're public servants. But some of the comments in there described were inaccurate. They described this as an extremely rural in nature. This is not an extremely rural area. People live here. People in this audience here today, speaking to you today, they live here. Their children go to school here. They climb on the school buses and go travel down that road. So it's not just an extremely rural area. You have over 30 immediately adjacent property owners. And I believe notice was put out that it went to 159. I believe that's what was put out by staff. So that's a lot of people that are potentially impacted by this. So I'm going to go to the criteria. So that's criteria number 4. I'll show you, here's some pictures here. The other issue is this is less than a mile from really the town center Flora home here. This is a historic area, but you have State Road 100 right there. This is not miles down the road. This is in the immediate vicinity of a state road and a two-lane essentially road that needs to be resurfaced. It has a lot of residents living there. So here's some pictures to kind of illustrate that point. Criteria number 4, this will substantially diminish or impair property values in the area and will impede orderly development of the surrounding property for permitted uses. So you've heard several people now, my notes, you've had at least 3, stand up here, residents, and say they believe this is going to impact their property values. What you have not heard from the applicant is that there was any property assessments done from the property appraiser's office, so we understand how this is going to impact the property owners area. Again, you're putting a 30-acre borough pit right in the middle where you have residents that live there. This will absolutely have an impact on the property values there, to the extent we don't know because we don't have the information. The information was not collected and provided to y'all so you can make that assessment. But our contention, the testimony you've heard today from some of the residents, is they believe it will impact their property value. You heard from the gentleman here that talked about his business, the bamboo, how that's going to impact that. So this absolutely, we believe, will highlight that. And I'll go through because I know we got a lot of other people want to speak today. Criteria number 5. The proposed access roads, on-site parking, on-site loading and unloading berths, drainage are inadequate. We don't have a full understanding of how drainage is going to impact here because there has not been a traffic study done in this area. What you had was essentially a traffic count. That is not a traffic study. That does not collect the information needed to understand how this traffic is going to impact, one, the road, and also impact potential safety issues in that area and all the other important things that would be drawn from a traffic study. There was no review of the impact on the Florida hiking trailhead. This is right near a major area that goes into the Florida trails. So again, you're going to have dump trucks driving right over the intersecting of that. You're going to have people walking. You're going to have all sorts of impacts that, again, I understand out of respect for the owner of this property, I'm sure that his intentions are to protect people, and I have no concerns as an attorney that he is not here to try to protect people. But the reality of it is you're going to have people walking on that trail that potentially are going to be impacted from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. during all sorts of months and time, and they're not going to have lighting there. And they couldn't possibly, there's no way they can ensure the safety for everyone up and down that road. But you're going to have that. You're going to have people out there. When I drove by the site this morning, first of all, it was raining the other day when I went by there, so it was you had a lot of weather conditions that were interesting, but you also have people out there walking. So this is going to impact that tremendously. So So again, you have here, you can see where the trail intersects here. You can see some lights here, and I have some of this in y'all's packet as well. These are some pictures of some of the road conditions here. You can see this road. It doesn't take an engineer to see this road needs some work. There are areas of this road that I could pile numerous pictures for you of areas along that road where it needs resurfacing. Criteria number 6, a proposed measure to provide ingress and egress to the property that are designed to minimize traffic impacts on local roads are inadequate. Again, I think we've been over this a little bit, but we don't have a traffic study. We don't have anything that can give an honest, competent, substantial evidence of how these traffic impacts are going to impact, one, the road and the infrastructure, but also the residents that live there. Here you can see, this is an example, you got canals and deep drain ditches on either side. Again, this is criteria number 10, and we talked about this. With this particular criteria, if you find this solely, and we've given you about 5 or 6 here that you could rely on for denying this outright, this criteria will adversely affect the general public health, safety, and welfare of residents in Putnam County. There are safety concerns here, there are infrastructure concerns, there are cost concerns. We don't know what the cost is to the county or to the taxpayers to resurface that road. I think the taxpayers who live out there would like to understand what the cost to them on their ad valorem taxes is for this volume of traffic and the impact that's going to have on the road. The usability of that road during times when kids are in school, the water management, there have been a number of issues raised about water management, also noise and dust pollution. You're going to have heavy, excavation equipment going on, increased noise, operation, transport. You're going to have all sorts of issues that are going to be impactful to the residents around there. Here's a picture of some kind of the weather condition, kind of the fog that you'll see out there, which can be impactful to safety. So we believe that application should be denied for all the criteria that we stated, number 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10. But also, again, I'll highlight there's no traffic study. There's no thorough study of drainage or runoff impacts. No sinkhole study. No groundwater study. No property appraisal was conducted. We have unknown costs of resurfacing the road. And candidly, there's no real accounting of the impacts of this 30-acre borrow pit on the property values. So again, we understand this is the beginning of the process, but this is the part of the process where you get to hear competent, substantial evidence from the residents who are the most impacted by this, who are impacted from this 6 months, a year down the road. When the rest of us in this room have moved on, they will continue to be impacted that when their kids are getting on the school buses or their grandkids, and they're impacted by 80 dump trucks coming down that road a day between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m., 6 days a week. So, Madam Chair, that's all I have as far as the presentation. What I'd like to draw your attention, I gave you all a packet. There's a list of a number of school bus stops that intersect with this road. I gave you a number of pictures as well. I gave a copy to Madam Clerk. There's also a petition here from a number of residents of Flora Home in the county that are impacted by that. So we appreciate your time today. Are there any questions? Anything I can answer for y'all?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Criteria 3.
Yes, ma'am.
How did Holloway Road get involved since it is not going to be impacted whatsoever?
Let me get to that part, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm finding a little bit of a cold here. What was the question?
I said, you've got lack of infrastructure. I said, how did Holloway Road get into this presentation? Because it is not going to be used.
So Holloway Road potentially could be, if the board decided to come up with conditions, approval with conditions, you could identify alternate routes. That is a highlight that there are other routes as well would not be suitable for this volume of traffic.
I'm just wondering.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I want to address that because at times this can come up as an alternate course. Most of the concerns you're hearing are specifically on this Coral Farms Road, but there are alternate routes that the applicant could use that also would be unsuitable for this area.
Okay. And then I have another question. From the Borrow Pit to 100, when you have your bus stops, how many bus stops are there from that Borrow Pit, the southern end of it, to 100?
So, ma'am, if you don't mind, we'd have to ask one of the residents that specifically. I don't have the specific answer to that question, but I believe some of the residents do that provided me the information.
Okay. Well, then, excuse me. Are one of the residents that has that information going to speak today?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And where did they get that information? I'm sorry? Oh, sure. Okay, before we begin listening to other residents, I don't have any more questions for you. I'd like to take a 5-minute break.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
We will recess for about 5 minutes. Would everybody please come in and have a seat? Okay, before we continue, the deputy sheriff came back and said that this was found in a restroom rather. So does anybody want to claim it? Does that look familiar to anybody? If you don't have your cell phone in your pocket? No. I would say a female. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We will continue with addressing speaker cards, and I think the next speaker has some information about the bus stop. So, Ms. Brenda Merritt, would you come forward? For the record, please state your name and address.
My name is Brenda Merritt, and I live at 147 East Dogwood Road in Flora Home. The question for the bus stops, there are 4 bus stops from 100 to the gate of they're going to be for their property. The one that's right there by their gate is handicap, and it serves 4 schools. So you got 4 times 4.
So you have 4 different buses going to 4
Right.
different schools.
Right.
Where they go to QI?
QI, Interlaken, Melrose, and then the, wherever the handicap.
Is it Mellon?
I'm not 100% sure exactly which school.
I think since
but
they
it's-
did away
it's
with
in here-
E.H. Miller,
it's in
they
here in
did it
Palatka.
Mellon, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So you've got the 4 times 4 twice a day.
Okay. Anything else to say?
Not at the moment, I
Okay,
don't.
all right, thank you. All right, Mr. Ronnie Carnes? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ronnie Carnes. I live at 507 Coral Farms Road, and I'm adjacent to this operation. And Madam Chairman and honorable members of the board, some of the things I'm going over, some of the points. One of the things they never mentioned was the Etna Canal being adjacent to this property. And there's a concern about the effluents being dropped into that canal some way. And that canal connects to two lakes, Etna Creek, Rice Creek, and the St. Johns River. So that's a concern there. Another thing that they touched on was the egress and entrance, the exit from this property. There is already an exit connected to that property to 100 besides the Coral Farms. And it's approved by DOT. The engineers approved it. And it's at the other end. It goes right to Highway 100. It has a signage on it for the Rails to Trails people that's riding their bicycles. And it was approved by the state. And that exits right off of this same property to 100. Back to the school bus safety, my daughter drives a school bus, and she has told us the experiences she has had on that road. It's a narrow road, and during certain parts of the season, the fog is so dense that she can't see the hood of the bus. And that strobe light they have on the top of it isn't visible. And she has her children in the rear of the bus move up forward in case somebody hits the back of the bus, because some of those automobiles really they don't pay attention to this fog, and they plow right through it. Another thing I own 40 acres adjacent to this site that they're working on some years back. We used to farm it, and the people across the fence where they're going to build this thing, they farmed it, and when they would plow that, you could go out and Native American arrowheads and pottery. We used to just be able to pick it up, it would come to the surface. And a while back, they were going to put a tower down on the same property where this pit's going, but they discovered Native American artifacts there and moved it to where it is currently stationed. Another thing I was going to bring up was about the road construction. You know, Putnam County does the maintenance on that Coral Farms Road. And right now, we know the county is in constraints budget-wise and personnel-wise to keep up what they've got, much less after the wear and tear on it, after all of this traffic on it. And some of the things that this thing has been called a fish pond and a barrel pit, but a 60-foot fish pond, as large as it's going to be, I've kind of wondered what kind of fish is going in that thing. But anyway, I trust that you'll make the right decision on this thing and hopefully not make if you can't today, extend it to give us further time to do further study on it, because obviously all the study that should have been done hasn't been done. So I thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Carnes. Okay, the next speaker is Mike McDaniel. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mike McDaniel, 145 East Corbina Way, Flora Home. Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for letting me speak. You've probably heard a lot of it, but basically safety in roads to me is the biggest concern that we have. I'm still not really sure where these trucks are going in and out, but if they're going to 100, then that's right there where the bike trails and everything are. Stack two semis back to back and you've just covered up the bike trail. That's how close it is to 100. Now we kind of have a joke around Flora Home that 100 is like the Autobahn. We have a lot of accidents, a lot of problems. We got Vulcan, which are good neighbors, but there are so many trucks going up and down 100. It's unbelievable. Now, about scared me to death when I heard somebody talking about Holloway Road or Tinsley. Anybody even try to go down one of those roads with semi, pretty much just destroy the roads. And then we haven't even talked about which directions they can go in and out. I mean, can they go out Bellamy Road? Because if they can go out Bellamy Road, that is an unbelievably failed road. It has more potholes than you can imagine. And it's half owned by Putnam County, half owned by Clay County. So it's just a matter of how much money you guys are willing to pay to keep that road up. Now 30 acres is just shy of a mining operation. And from my understanding is they can go 5 years and they can ask to be re-up for 5 years. And a lot of times what happens there, some big company comes in, like Vulcan, decides they want a mining operation because it's already there. Spend a little bit of money, it's a possibility that can happen. So really it sounds like a borrow pit that's turned into a mining operation to me. It is about 15 trips an hour if you just divide it out by hour. So, but not everybody's going to come in broke down in hour increments. So there could be a lot more going in and out. I don't think they've done a road study out there, because if they do start using Coral Farms heading out towards Bellamy, Coral Farms basically has 15-foot ditches on each side, basically a road stacked on top of a bunch of dirt. That road is collapsed before. I mean, not collapsed, but it's just starting to, the underpinning is starting to go down on it. And I'd like to know if these truck drivers are paid by the hour or by the load, because if they're paid by the hour, they're going to go a little slower. They paid by the load, they're going to be moving pretty quick like they do up and down. Is that me? Okay. And
You've been beeped.
that's about it. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. James Lilly? Did he leave?
It's you, Alvin, come on.
James Lilly. Is it L-I, and it looks like Lillly. That's it, okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is James Lilly, and I'm at 984 Call Farms Road in Florhome, Florida. And I've lived in Florhome all my life. And I got a lot of historical remembrance of there. I'm holding my hand right now. It's a Florhome map. The original Florhome map is over 100 years old. And according to this map by Etna Creek Corporation, the drainage company, they're building their proposed pit or construction in lot 74, block 70, 74 and 75 of this map here. And this, and it has on this, the middle of
Mr. Lilly, would you speak into the mic?
Pardon?
I said, would you get a little bit
Okay.
closer to the mic?
The middle of this map is Highway 100 and Florhome and Call Farms Road. There's over 70 building lots on Call Farms Road at this present time, between their entrance that they want to come out on Call Farms Road to Highway 100. At this present time, there's a construction company that's going to build within the next 2 weeks 5 over $200,000 homes right behind the Methodist church there. And there will be family homes, there will be children, and the safety period with if people starting to move into Florhome area at this present time. And I'm concerned about their family homes, and I'm concerned about the safety of their children that would be on there with this amount of truck traffic. Also, I have 70-acre farm out there in Florhome on this Call Farms Road. And also my neighbor also has farm equipment. And we often use Call Farms Road to go up and down on to our fields. And this is slow traffic behind a tractor. And with the fog and everything, we start early in the morning as farmers do. And with this fog that we have, as you have heard, that's a concern also. Also, the gentleman before me just mentioned about there's no shoulders on Call Farms Road in that particular area. Actually, they have about a quarter of a mile built up with boards to hold that shoulder on. You cannot pull off on that road with that board. The county just had me I spent $20,000 to fill in to help support that, the boards that's holding up that bank just about 2 years ago. And so that is a very big concern. That's a quarter of a mile through there. I think one of the gentlemen back here now.
Mr. Lilly, turn around and talk to us.
I think but there's a gentleman here now that's it's in the county that we had a big discussion about that. But anyway, I also like to bring up that the mortgagee on this particular, that's holding the mortgage on this piece of property, referred directly to me, and Mr. Carnes brought that up just a moment ago about the artifacts, Indian artifacts on this particular piece of property. And a native Indian, I understand, according to the mortgagee on this property, that the Native Historical Group or a Native Indian group came out and examined this area where this particular pit was going to go in and where the cell tower is going to go in. And they said they could not put the cell tower there, and they had to move the cell tower up to what the present place is now. And also there's Indian mounds right next to in-floor home there in this particular area. And there was 4 Indian mounds that was bulldozed over by someone that I know the name, but in that particular area also. So with this, with the ballpark is just 1 block from this Call Farms Road. And we have bicycles, people with bicycles going up and down the road, and we have little electric mopeds going up and down the road
Okay,
in
I'm
this
going to
area.
call time on you, so.
Pardon?
I said I'm going to call time on you, so can you wrap it up?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Please
man.
turn your cell phone off.
It's a 100-year-old map here.
Yeah. James, I don't know if it's Kuno? Okay.
James Cuneo, 569 West Hillsborough Avenue, Floor Home. I live out at George's Lake. I'm also the Community Association President and the Fire Chief out there at George's Lake. One thing that hasn't been brought up here is the residents out at George's Lake. All the letters that went out, nobody from that area got letters on this. Okay, so I will say too, I also used to work for Putnam County. I'm the one that built resurfaced Coal Farms Road about 5 to 6 years ago. That road was built with Better Place paying money, which means it wasn't built to the same standards as DOT specifications in all accounts. Okay, when we designed Holloway Road, when you have heavy truck traffic, you should have 8 inches of lime rock and 3 inches of asphalt. Right now, Coal Farms Road has approximately 3 inches of lime rock and an inch and a half of asphalt. So that means these heavy trucks, as soon as they go up and down that road, are going to tear that road up big time in a short amount of time. Also, if they go out, go north and go out Bellamy Road, then they're also going to be doing the same thing. Coal Farms Road is basically built a peat bog road that was built back in the 1800s. So that road is going to be significantly damaged. It cost the county a little over $1 million to do that road from Bellamy Road to State Road 100. I was a project manager on it. Florida Power & Light put about $250,000 in it. We had them help us with it after the solar farm went in. So your road issues, I hold DOT certifications in asphalt, earthworks, and stormwater pollution prevention. So I know and I work with these companies that do this stuff every day. I'm doing St. John's Avenue right here in Palaca as we speak. Okay? So the trucks are going to significantly impact the road. I've already told you about the paving. These trucks are hauling anywhere from 18 to 21 tons of material. Small trucks, 28 to 30 tons of material with the long trucks. You're going to have the increased traffic. They can go out State Road 100. They've already been going in and out of there, hauling in lime rock, stockpiling lime rock for the past 6 months to a year. It's a simple easement request from the state to go across a trail. They can widen it, open it up, and have their own ingress and egress out of there without affecting any traffic, without affecting any school bus issues or kids on the road. It can be done. It's an easy process. I did it when I worked for Public Works right here in this county. Okay? We already have a potential for a subdivision going on out at George's Lake. A large piece of property was sold out there on the north side of the lake, between the lake and the Clay County line. That's going to be increased families that are coming in and up Coal Farms Road. Everybody that lives at George's Lake travels Coal Farms Road. You're looking at anywhere from 750 to about 1,300 people that live out at George's Lake alone, not only the floor home residents. All right? There's a gas pipeline that was just recently put in through there. How's that going to negatively affect it? The road, if you do this, the road needs to be brought up to DOT specs to where they can handle the increased truckload, but preferably to go out State Road 100. And I know that's my 3 minutes, but I have firsthand experience working in this county, building roads, and I know what's going on. You got a big decision on your hands, and I'm sorry about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie Cribbs. For the record, please give us your name and address.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Jo Cribbs. This is my husband, Vernon Cribbs, passing these out. Our family residence right now is 1593 San Ardo Drive. However, our family ranch is 170 West Dogwood Road. Dear members of the board, we're here to oppose the above special use permit application. We own property in the area, and our plans are to retire in Flora Home. Our family owns the 170 West Dogwood Cribbs Cracker Cattle Ranch. Please review pages 3 and 4 regarding the adjacent proposed borrow pit to our property. I've mapped it out and highlighted it in pink. Our concerns include adverse impact on the wildlife in the areas. That's on page 5 and 6. There's herds of deer every afternoon that come. Impact on safety and health to the citizens, and adverse effect on water levels and environmental quality. As noted in the Planning and Development Staff Report for this application, the density of residential land use in the vicinity of the proposed location is greater than the future land use category dictates. That's where the attorney spoke with the comprehensive land plan. The residential usage should be protected and maintained. The proximity to this proposed operation to numerous residents use properties alone indicate concerns for it. There is a high likelihood of adverse experience among surrounding property owners due to the proposed operation. We are concerned for the safety of the residents that travel Coral Farms Road as well as 100 due to the proposed 80 dump trucks added daily. It's also true that while capacity may be okay on Coral Farms, please look at page 9. I have a picture that's a 5-inch drop-off. I constantly go up and down those roads since I live in St. Augustine. I travel them to come out to our properties. That is excessive when your vehicle hits that side. And imagine a dump truck coming at you the other way. You could overcorrect easily and be a horrible accident. The added traffic will further tax a road that already requires attention for road maintenance. Our precious county tax dollars are spent for road maintenance of Coral Farms Road, and the additional burden this will put on the road and cost to residents is just too high. Our surrounding areas have seen the devastation caused by the carelessness of mining over the past decades. Water levels of nearby wetlands, surface waters, potable water, well water, and irrigation wells is frequently decreased by borrow pit operation. Air, noise, soil, and water pollutions are all possible impact of the borrow pit due to the equipment, operation, and truck traffic. All too often, appropriate measures to minimize environmental impacts at borrow pits are not taken, and the surrounding residents' health and well-being decline. Property values, I am a realtor, property values will definitely decrease, which then in return also decrease your tax basis. And the wildlife and natural environment faces detrimental impact. Furthermore, borrow pits are commonly repurposed as landfills, and this is from a DEP person. Furthermore, borrow pits are commonly repurposed as landfills after operation of the pit ceases, which is an even greater environmental and human health consequence. We strongly urge you to deny the special use permit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, our last speaker this afternoon is David Wade.
Good afternoon. I ask you please not to start the clock for my presentation until after I give you my credentials.
Would you please state your name and address?
My name is David Wade, 1270 Coral Farms Road. We own 250 foot of residential property, R1, 5 miles down from Highway 100 is our property. We pay on the tax assessment roll over $400,000, our estimated value of our property. Traffic on Coral Farms Road is right now horrendous. School buses, trucks, trailers. It's used as a cutoff road to reach Blanding Boulevard through 315 and Bellamy Road. And that's exactly what will happen and the dump truck backup that I could project. I also, not here to make any friends, but, and after I say this, I certainly wouldn't be, but I understand that executive exclusive approval rights are given to this committee of non-elected officials. Not one of you sitting there is an elected official. The committee members that I've talked to on the building code, on the that are elected officials, say that they were allowed to pick one of you. You don't have to answer me, but I challenge the qualifications of this committee to be on a group that can say yes or no to this multi-million-dollar project that's fixed in effect all through our residents and our property values. You call yourselves a quasi group, and I agree. My background is industrial mechanical maintenance. I was Georgia Pacific's General Superintendent of Maintenance for numerous years until I retired. I lived in Palatka all my life. My children, of which are 6, are all grown now, one a deputy sheriff, and the list goes on. But we came to Flora Home 3 years ago to get away from the environment of close contact with people and get out into the wildlife experience that Coral Farms has always offered to us. I challenge the ability of this committee to be the sole proprietor that will say yes or no to this project going on. I think it should come from an elected group of officials that we all have voted on, and that's sorry, but that's just the way I feel about it. I understand in talking with the ethics committee lady this morning that that can be corrected simply by the board attorney making a request. And I don't doubt the qualifications that you guys might have, but I didn't elect you. I didn't vote on you. I don't know you. And here you are voting on my property value, the safety of my children, and my grandchildren. Here I've got something to show you. It's kind of a sketch. In that sketch, I'll turn it around to show you in just a minute, which represents the road that's in front of my house, 125 foot from my back doorstep, and 250 foot of property that we own. The road itself is signified here by the outside diameters within the lines being 17 foot. The average line in between the center lines is 8'6". A dump truck and a school bus are both 8'4". That gives the driver of a dump truck 1 inch on either side of his truck to stay within the lines. If you don't believe it, you're welcome to come out and look at it. Apparently, the company who's trying to pull this off on you is not doing its due diligence. And again, I drive a dually truck on some occasions, and it only, because it's 8 foot, there's only 3 inches on each side of a dually. Now, and you're talking about truck traffic and dump trucks. You've got 2 dump trucks that are coming, one opposing the other. One dump truck's going to have to take the ditch, and there is no ditch on Coral Farms Road. And there's school children waiting to be picked up. I've got grandchildren there.
Mr. Wade, I'm going to ask you to please wrap up your presentation.
Okay, I'll wrap it up, but again, I'd like you to review this. You can take a picture of it.
If you give that to us, we have to keep it. So if you want to keep it,
well, that's
you
fine
can,
with
you can
fine
refer
with
to
me.
it.
You can keep it. It's got my notes on the back. And again, my qualifications are, in wrapping up, I've worked at titanium mines on the way to Green Cove. I was project manager of the building of those mines and dredging for titanium there. I've worked in White Springs at the phosphate mines there. I've worked for United Space Alliance, NASA, and helped them with rigging of the composites for their rockets and so forth. I'm probably one step under being a qualified engineer, but I'm not an engineer. I'm
Okay.
just working folk like everybody that's here. And again, making the case for people other than myself who depend on Coral Farms Road. And the people here gave you a drawing that I don't have, but it shows that Coral Farms Road doesn't even have to be used. Their property engages with Highway 100 in a way that they could get to it, leave Coral Farms Road, but then the additional traffic and the DOT and a stoplight, even at Coral Farms Road and the other road, would have to take place.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wade.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to give the applicant a chance to rebuttal or make any comments that they wish as far as the closing remarks. And or any other cross-examinations that you would like to do. No. We'll look at it.
Madam Chair, Matt Lottie, Gulfstream Design Group. We've heard a lot of evidence from both attorneys and the neighbors. A lot of these items are not necessarily components of the direct application process, but we'd like to maybe hear some of the board's comments on the public comment that they heard, and I think ultimately maybe work through a few options with you guys, but ultimately consider a deferral on a vote tonight until we can provide some additional technical data that may help to alleviate some of the concerns of the neighbors, such as a traffic study, interaction with the water management district, interaction with public works for the county, and potentially have some of these items addressed in greater detail prior to the board making a decision.
Okay, so you're asking that we postpone a decision for today, or table it and come back at another time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just going to make sure that that's what I heard. Okay, so is that going to be your final, or do you want to cross-examine anyone?
I don't think we need to necessarily cross-examine any of the technical witnesses that were here today. We have affidavits and PowerPoints, so we'd just like to get copies of a lot of that. We weren't provided any of that in advance, so we'd like to get copies of that information that was provided today so that we could again return with that evidence that provides you competent, substantial evidence to approve this project.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, I think we have concluded today's hearing, so that the applicant has requested that we table until he gets a chance to get some more specifics. So if there's any other comments or questions?
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
The only comment that I have to say is that this board isn't voted on by you, but we do live in Putnam County. I was born and raised in Putnam County, been on this board for 12 years, along with several other of these people. We don't take the decisions that we make up here lightly. They're difficult, they're hard. And we sit up here and see you, and it doesn't make it any easier. But sometimes you have to make decisions based on law and based on what the county's land development codes say or what this says. So I just want you to know that this board does not take a decision, any decision, lightly.
Excuse me, Mr.
Mr.
Wade. We do not,
Mr. Wade,
Mr. Wade,
you are
have a seat.
finished. You are finished,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Wade.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Is there any way that we could allow the board to discuss and perhaps detail what kind of additional information you would like to see from the applicants?
Well, I would think that some of the questions that were brought up today,
He should have
I thought he shared some of the things that he wanted to look into and get further clarification. So if you'd like to come back up and reiterate what you just said and say if there's any specifics, he's the one that asked for it to be tabled.
I didn't know if the board had any items they specifically wanted addressed.
Well, I don't know, as to what the process would be from the standpoint of if there's no approval, is St. John's Water Management going to come up with a plan, or is Florida Wildlife Conservation going to come up with a plan prior to approval, or they're willing to take that chance and spend the time and energy and money?
I think Mr. Weaver wanted to add something too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what I would say to staff is, of course, what everybody's asking for, the traffic study, but something in detail as far as the follow-up processes. Water has been mentioned a lot, and we know DEP is going to be involved in that, but more clarification on exactly how that's all going to be covered. DEP's, going to be deep in that. Water management is going to be deep in that. But exactly what their roles are, to clarify that for us as well as the public here, so there's a better understanding that, because a lot of the stuff's been brought up that we have no bearing on. We don't work for DEP, we don't work for water management. There's different roles, and as y'all said at the beginning, this is one step in the process, but maybe better for clarification on going forward, the county's role in the road, in approving, their say-so on, is the road going to hold up? Who's going to be responsible for it? Is there going to be a bond if the road's damaged?
Thank you, sir.
Do you have any other comments?
This is great board discussion, so if any of the other board members have anything else, to add, those are great components.
You heard all of the concerns and the comments, and like Mr. Weaver said, the water, the road, et cetera, so it's nothing that it's new, just that maybe a little bit more clarification and further investigation into what's concerned, or what's involved, rather.
Noted. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've had a request to table this for today and come back with a more definitive plan. Sorry. And if we table it, what length of time is it a month, 2 months involved that you would need in order to have a specific time to be tabled? We don't want to say you're going to come back next month if you don't have the information.
I think based on the application cycle and turning things back into staff, and in order to have the meetings, engage DEP, Water Management District, Public Works, we would probably need about 90 days.
Okay, about 3 months, okay. So would that June?
June.
July?
June or July.
June, I think, would be.
June will be, you think, adequate time? Okay.
And Madam Chair, too, whenever we get that information back, we'll have to look at our application submittal chart, and then we'll just kind of put it on the next applicable zoning board of adjustment meeting. That way we can appropriately notify, notice newspaper ads, and sign the property.
Okay, so do we say indefinitely, or do we put a time frame?
Sounds to me like if we're going to re-advertise, then we don't need to necessarily come to a time certain today.
That's correct.
Okay.
We need to re-advertise. I don't want to decide upon a date and then the applicants, fail to make contact with someone.
That's what I was saying, if they couldn't make it, so.
I would rather basically put the ball in their court. When they come back to us with all their answers, then we'll kind of
Until further notice?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Make a motion?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, before you make a motion, I'd like to ask planning, does the applicant have to submit another application?
We will not need another application. This one will stay open. They would just provide us with the new documentation and submittal materials. We would add that to the existing application. So the staff report will be amended according to the information that they provide to us, and then it'll be a thicker packet for ZBOA when it comes back in front of them.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'd like to point out our code doesn't really have any specific reference to tabling a application in it at all.
Do we postpone?
Well, I'm trying to tell you that, but what it is that this board and all of our citizen boards are governed by Robert's Rules of Order, which of course does have where you can, in fact, table motions. So that's where we stand right now. I don't know what the board's pleasure is.
Well, I think I'm willing to go along with the applicant from the standpoint of being able to come back to the board after they've obtained all of the information that's been requested.
Can Mr. Blocker be heard for just a moment, if it's all right?
Okay, Mr. Blocker.
Madam Chair, I
Please
think
state your
just-
name for the record so we'll know who's objecting.
Jeremy Blocker with the Douglas firm. So I think we have to, for appellate reasons, we have to put on the record, we would oppose this. Y'all do not have a form and a process to table this. I understand Robert's order. However, this is a duly noticed agenda item that's before y'all today. Y'all are able to vote on it today if the board decides, or the applicant can withdraw and resubmit. But y'all do not have a procedure just to table this motion today. So we would, the residents that we represent, we would object to that. I understand the reasons that the applicant, wants to go back and redo this, but again, this was noticed, early on in their contention, the questioning, they gave testimony they did not have to provide some of this information. I certainly understand why they want to go back and gather this information, but this agenda item is before y'all today. Y'all do not have a procedurally to table a motion like this. We would respectfully ask that they withdraw their application, which they can resubmit at a later time, and give the residents an opportunity for it to be noticed again and come back. But this delay is not part of your rules. I understand the Robert Rules of Order. I'm going to respectfully disagree that would cover this type of procedure. So I don't know if Mr.
Let him speak for himself, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Byron Flagg, representing Louise James Clark. For the record, I concur with Mr. Blocker's opinion and conclusion. And for the record, my clients would object to a tabling of continued consideration of the application before the board right now. The applicant has requested you to table your action, but not withdraw their application. And so we also agree with Mr. Blocker that we believe that Mr. Blocker is correct, and we reserve the right to be able to file any kind of appeal or injunction necessary to protect my client's rights.
Thank you.
Ms. Osborne, in response, as I just mentioned to you, our code, I have found nothing which allows a board to table a motion.
Okay.
I simply brought up Robert's Rules of Orders because it is indeed mentioned. Does that mean that you can table? Not necessarily. I mean, it's ambiguous. It's a gray area. Also, the code specifies that the board is supposed to vote on the matters that come before it.
Okay.
That's the job and the responsibility. That's why we're here. And but my role is to do nothing more than to try and tell you what your options are, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
But everything that I read tends to point towards taking a vote.
Okay, I have Mr. Is it Leahy? Okay, Mr. Baker. I think the question was asked, if they withdraw their application, do they have to resubmit and reapply?
Yes, ma'am. If they withdraw, then they would need to resubmit an application.
Okay, so since you've heard all that's been going back and forth, we do not have the authority to table it, so which is, I ask to make sure that we're following the correct procedures. So how do you want to handle it? You want to vote today, or you want to withdraw your application?
Can I have a few minutes just to confer with the
Sure.
applicant?
Excuse me? No, sir, no, ma'am. Not right now. We are in discussion.
We have taken things in the past, not a lot, but several.
Mm-hmm.
The applicants chose to withdraw the application and will resubmit.
Okay. So the final order is that the applicant has withdrawn his application for, at this time, so there will be no vote. Okay? All right, that's all of the things that we have. Please, we have other business to conduct, so if you want to refrain from leaving. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is old business, I think, or new business. I got to find my agenda.
Here.
Find my agenda. We have old business. Anyone else have anything to mention? Nothing? New business?
Maybe my house will be sold by,
Yeah, I know. Okay, would everybody please leave if you're going to be leaving, or please refrain from the conversation? Thank you. Okay, well, guess we haven't. Gee. People in the audience, thank you. Okay, I'm going to go over this one more time for the agenda. Old business. Do we have any old business? Do we have any new business? Oh, we have a new member.
what a terrible time to start.
That was a good time.
Okay.
This may be his first.
Willie, did you say Willie?
Willie, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and he was appointed by Leota. So welcome aboard, and it was an interesting.
They're not always like this.
Okay, and the last thing is the minutes for January 17th.
Make a motion to approve.
Everybody's had a chance to
Second.
read. We have a motion and a second to approve January 17th, 2024 meetings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Motion for adjournment.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Thank you.
Did you say this is going to be your first time?
Oh, whoops.